who was serving in the military, took a leave to visit her family at Lu Chongjing's suggestion. The whole family was finally together. Seeing all his descendants, Lu Qing'an couldn't stop smiling. In the entire commune, Lu Qing'an felt proud. All his children and grandchildren were doing well. His eldest son and daughter-in-law both had jobs, which was impressive for a dual-income family in the countryside. His eldest granddaughter was in the military, and his second granddaughter was excelling in her studies, likely to get into college. His grandson, though not the best student, was obedient and didn't have any bad habits. Though the second son's family was a bit less successful, he had become a small leader at the factory and both grandsons were doing well. Especially the eldest grandson, Guodong, who had good grades and showed the same drive as the third son, indicating a bright future. The third son's family was even more impressive. Both parents were the pride of the Lu family, and their two precious grandsons were not only skipping grades but also topping their classes in the 5th grade. With such connections, their future was secure. His daughter had also found a good match. Both partners were college graduates, ensuring a bright future. With a new grandson added to the family, his biggest worries were gone. Life was getting better and better. Lu Qing'an felt completely fulfilled. Previously, his mother worried that the Lu family had only one heir and might be bullied. "Mother, now I have a full house of descendants, all successful. No one will bully us, so you can rest easy." Surrounded by his sons and sons-in-law, Lu Qing'an drank and, as he did, tears welled up in his eyes. Li Yue, seeing this, understood that Lu Qing'an was missing his mother. She felt a pang of sadness too. Such a wonderful person had left too soon. If she were still alive, seeing the family gathered like this would surely bring her immense joy. The Lu family's New Year celebration was lively. After dinner, Lu Qing'an took out a basket of fireworks he had splurged on and let the younger generation set them off. Though the fireworks of this era weren't as dazzling as those of the future, they were a unique spectacle for the people of that time. Many people came out of their houses to watch from their yards. In the past, being able to fill their stomachs was a luxury only during the New Year. Later, they not only had enough to eat but also meat. Now, the New Year was not just about food but also about family reunions and celebrations. Just like the fireworks, in the future, there wouldn't be spare money to spend on such things. Times had truly changed, and life was getting better. After the fireworks, the younger generation paid their New Year respects and then gathered in the living room to keep the elders company. After midnight, Su Mo and her family forgot up to head home for some rest. After walking a short distance, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw Lu Fengqin. Lu Fengqin was running a bit out of breath, her face flushed. She approached Su Mo and Lu Chongjing and bowed, saying, "Uncle, Aunt, I'm sorry. And thank you." After being assigned to a secret unit, Lu Fengqin initially felt resentful. At that time, she was eager to go to the big city for a better life, but she ended up in a remote mountain area even more isolated than Lijiakan, with no contact with the outside world. Even food had to be delivered periodically. There were several occasions when heavy snow blocked the roads, and supplies couldn't be replenished. The remaining food was prioritized for scientists, leaving the support staff with just one meal a day to ensure they didn't starve. She certainly endured hardships, but she gained invaluable experiences. Listening to the stories of those old veterans, Lu Fengqin realized that life is not just about having good food and clothing. There are higher pursuits in life. Many of those veterans came from prestigious backgrounds and lived comfortably in their early years, yet for the sake of the country, they willingly stayed in this isolated mountain area, dedicating everything they had. They sacrificed their families for the greater good, so the country could have enough strength and the people could stand tall. Compared to them, she felt insignificant. She had previously thought her uncle was indifferent to her plight, sending her to the mountains, but now she understood the thoughtfulness behind his decision and felt ashamed of her earlier thoughts. Recognizing your mistakes and wanting to change is good, Lu Chongjing said. "I will definitely work hard," Lu Fengqin replied earnestly. "All right, it's cold. You should head back." Lu Chongjing waved her off. When Lu Chongjing sent Lu Fengqin there, it was not only to toughen her character, but also to keep her options open. Although he hadn't interacted much with Lu Fengqin, he noticed that she seemed diligent and caring towards her siblings during her visits. Her roots should be good. She just got sidetracked by negative influences while growing up. As long as someone has good roots, spending a few years in the right environment can help them get back on track. The secret unit, though tough, was filled with highly respected veterans. If she had the fortune to gain the favor of one of them, it would benefit her for a lifetime. The next day, Lu Chongjing borrowed a truck from the army and took his family to the city. After several years, the Lu family was going out together again. Lu Boming and the three elders, along with Lu Xiaolan and her child, sat in the front seats, while the others brought small stools to sit in the truck bed. The weather was nice and it didn't snow. Although it was winter and the wind was strong in the truck bed, everyone was bundled up and excited to go to the city, so they didn't feel cold at all. The families from the main and second branches leaned over the truck bed to enjoy the scenery, while Su Mo and her children stayed in the truck bed to avoid the wind. Even though they had special abilities and weren't as sensitive to the cold as ordinary people, the northern wind was still quite biting. Plus, they had traveled this route many times before and had seen the scenery. When they arrived in Shuangshan City, the truck slowed down, and Su Mo and her children finally peeked outside. Whenever they returned, they usually went straight from the train station and rarely visited the city. Although it had been over a year since the reform and opening up, Shuangshan City, a small northern city, hadn't changed much. The family first went to a department store, and the children were amazed by the wide variety of products and the flying wire used for payments. Even Lu Fengqin, who had been in the army for 2 years, was surprised. She had been stuck in a remote area, and this was her first time seeing such a large department store. She thought the department store in Shuangshan was quite upscale, and she couldn't even imagine how luxurious the department stores in bigger cities like Yangcheng or Haisher would be. If she had seen this before joining the army, Lu Fengqin would have insisted on going to Yangcheng. But now, although she still thought it was nice, she didn't have the same strong desire to go. After more than 2 years in the army, Lu Fengqin couldn't send money home from the mountains. However, her unit's allowance was higher than usual, so she saved over 200 yuan. When she returned, she gave her family 200 yuan and had a few dozen left. Since she was in a hurry to come back, she didn't have time to buy gifts for her younger siblings. Instead, she gave each of them 1 yuan to buy something they liked. Then, she bought a hat for each of the 3 elders. Her great-granddaughter and granddaughter were thoughtful, and the 3 elders happily accepted the gifts. Seeing Lu Fengqin like this, Lu Xingjuan finally felt relieved. It really takes the 3rd child to teach people. Lu Xingjuan initially wanted to talk to Lu Chongjing and thank him, but he found him constantly with his younger siblings, hardly leaving their side. The 2 kids seemed to have run off somewhere, and he didn't seem worried at all. Feeling annoyed, Lu Xingjuan decided not to look for Lu Chongjing and went to find the 2 little ones instead. They were so cute that he wanted to keep them safe from any trouble. After shopping for half the morning, the family gathered for lunch. Lu Yuji and Lu Hohat had big bags filled with purchases, and even Li Yue had quite a few items. After lunch at a state-run restaurant, the family continued to explore for a while. In the afternoon, they came across a cinema that was showing a new movie, so they bought tickets to watch it. This movie was the first romantic film in the country, setting a precedent for domestic cinema. It beautifully showcased the local scenery and featured a rare kissing scene, with the female lead changing outfits 43 times. The film captivated men and sparked women's desire for beauty. The female lead became a household name, regarded as the dream lover of the 1980s audience. After leaving the cinema, Su Mo reminded Lu Xiaolan and her husband to quickly open their clothing store after the new year. Once the movie became popular, the costumes would surely sell well. When they returned to Yangcheng after the new year, she planned to have her studio replicate the styles to take advantage of the trend. After watching the movie, it was getting late, so the family headed home. Back in the Lu family village, Su Mo first called Su Yuan to ask him to watch the movie, paying attention to the female lead's costumes. She wanted him to contact their textile factory to see if they had suitable materials available. If not, they would buy from abroad through special channels. To keep up with the trend, they needed to act quickly. Otherwise, by the time domestic factories caught up, they would be producing in bulk and profits would decrease. After a quick dinner at home, Sue Mo took out paper and pencil and sketched the costumes she remembered from the movie. She planned to review them again when she returned to Yangcheng and make any necessary adjustments. The next day, on the second day of the new year, the families from the main and second branches went visiting relatives, while Sue Mo's family had a meal with Lu Xiaolan at the old house. Around noon, Lu Hohot came over with her sister Lu Meihua. Over the years, Lu Fubao had managed to control Zhao Jiuxiang, and the siblings had started to reconnect. Lu Meihua chatted with the three elders for a while before joining Lu Hohot to consult Sue Mo. Lu Meihua was quite ambitious. After hearing about the reforms and openings on the radio, she felt eager to start her own business, now that individual entrepreneurship was allowed. She learned from Lu Hohot that Sue Mo's family had started a business a few years ago, so she wanted to ask for Sue Mo's advice. Lu Meihua initially thought about opening a small food stall in the county town. She was good at cooking and planned to sell dumplings, buns, and pancakes. However, during her visit to Shuangshan City, Sue Mo noticed that there were hardly any individual businesses. If the city was like this, the situation in Qingxi County would be even worse. Opening a shop at this time was still too early for small cities. In a year or two, when people's mindsets changed, it would be more suitable to open a business and sales would improve. But Sue Mo believed that a food business could work. People always need to eat, and even in small places, as long as the food is good, there will be customers willing to spend money. However, it needed a different approach. Instead of renting a shop, they could start as street vendors, preparing the food at home and then selling it in busy areas using a bicycle. Although this would be harder work, it would likely earn more than renting a shop. After a year or two, once they built a good reputation, they could then open a store. Sue Mo shared her thoughts with them, and Lu Meihua found it very reasonable. Although street vending was a bit tough, the risk was low. If they didn't sell anything, they would only lose a little food. After thanking Sue Mo, Lu Meihua and her sister discussed it and decided to follow Sue Mo's advice. They would take advantage of the winter to prepare and start after the new year. Lu Hohot also planned to join her sister. Since everyone else in the family had jobs, she felt bad not earning money herself. If this venture succeeded, she would feel more confident. In the evening, Tao Peisheng and Ma Xiaojun, along with their child, came to the Lu family to celebrate the new year. They had dinner at the Lu family's home. After the meal, the men chatted in the living room. Sue Mo asked Lele to take Ma Xiaojun's son to play, while she and Ma Xiaojun went back to her place to discuss opening a clothing store. Sue Mo had mentioned this idea in a letter to Ma Xiaojun before. Ma Xiaojun was already interested, and after hearing Sue Mo explain it in detail and seeing the clothing samples and designs she brought back, she quickly made a decision. Harbin is a big city, and there are many educated youth returning to the city. Although there are fewer individual businesses than in Yangcheng, they do exist. The government still has supportive policies in this area. However, Harbin is not a special economic zone, and since Ma Xiaojun is a university graduate, she can't get a business license. But the Tao family has some connections, so they can find someone to help with that. After the new year, she plans to return to Harbin immediately, find someone to handle the paperwork, and quickly rent a shop. At this time, Harbin's economy ranks among the top 10 in the country, and its consumer capacity is quite good. That's why Sue Mo dared to partner with Ma Xiaojun to open a clothing store. With their clothing styles, opening a shop in Harbin is sure to be profitable. In Qingxi County, however, it wouldn't work. No matter how good the clothing styles are, the locals can't afford them, and they might not sell even 1 or 2 pieces in a month. So, when the Lu sisters asked her about opening a clothing store, she didn't agree to it. Sue Mo was busy with work and couldn't stay home for long. Around the 5th day of the new year, she had to leave. At that time, Lu Chongzheng and Sue Mo would go first, and the 2 children would stay until just before school starts. On the 3rd day of the new year, Lu Chongzheng took the 2 children to the army. Suemo initially wanted to visit Lee Jayako to see Kyoto, but she heard that Suemo was back, so she came to visit instead. When Suemo saw Kyoto, she almost didn't recognize her. After 2 years, the girl had changed so much. First, she had grown taller. When Suemo last saw her, she was small and thin, barely over a meter tall. Now she had shot up and it looked like she was over 1.6 meters. Secondly, she had filled out. She no longer looked dark and skinny. She had a rounder figure. Her skin was much fairer, and her features were bright and striking, especially her eyes, which were particularly lively. Most importantly, her overall demeanor showed much more confidence than before. Seeing her like this, Suemo felt a sense of pride, thinking, "My girl has grown up." She felt quite pleased, as she had watched the girl grow. The reason Lee Chunhua had changed so much was not only because she was at the right age for growth, but also because she could eat well after starting middle school. Before, when she was in elementary school, she walked to school every day, which took about 3 hours round trip. The physical exertion was great, and the little food she ate was mostly used for studying and walking. As a girl without parents, she hurried home to cook and fill her stomach, usually eating coarse porridge. Although Suemo and Teacher Gu helped her, it wasn't enough to solve her immediate needs. Life was only a bit better when they sent her supplies. After starting middle school, the school waived her boarding fees, so she didn't have to walk such long distances every day, saving a lot of energy. Additionally, because she studied hard and had good grades, the teachers knew she was an orphan. Some boarding teachers would occasionally share some of their food with her when they saw she wasn't eating well. Thanks to the kindness of these teachers, Lee Chunhua's meals improved significantly. Her body, just like her personality, took advantage of this opportunity and started to grow rapidly. The two chatted for a long time. Besides asking about Lee Chunhua's life and studies, Suemo also inquired about school matters. Suemo had previously taken treasures buried by Luo Yuan, and she didn't plan to keep them for herself. She was waiting for the right opportunity to return them to Qingxi County. These children are not only the future of Qingxi County, but also the future of the country. Suemo planned to spend this money on improving education in Qingxi County. She wanted to donate books to the primary and secondary schools, build libraries, and establish scholarship funds to help children who couldn't afford to go to school complete their education. As the country began to develop its economy, knowledge became increasingly important. The next 20 years would be a golden era where knowledge changes destiny. For rural children, education is often the only way to succeed. Suemo shared some of her ideas with Kyoto, encouraging her to focus on her studies and apply for scholarships once she got into high school. Lee Chunhua had consistently ranked first in her grade in almost every exam, so getting into high school was not a problem. After having dinner with Kyoto, Suemo rode her bike to take her home, reminding her to stay at school as much as possible and to lock the doors and windows at night if she came back. Kyoto's house was at the bottom of the village, and it was just her family living there. Now that she had grown up, she was somewhat of a beauty. There are always a few lecherous and lazy men around. This girl had a tough life, and just as she was about to step into the light, she couldn't be ruined by such people. Suemo had thought about letting Kyoto stay at her house, but when she mentioned it, Kyoto refused, saying it was her home, and she wanted to protect it. She promised to be careful. After leaving Kyoto's house, Suemo went to Captain Lee's house to bring him a good cigarette and asked him to keep an eye on Lee Chunhua. She also subtly mentioned her concerns and exaggerated the severity of crimes, warning that if caught, the punishment could be death. She asked Captain Lee to warn those who might be dangerous. Although the crackdown on crime wasn't very strict at the moment, things could change in a couple of years. No matter how powerful your family was, if you committed a crime, you could still face the death penalty. Having met with friends and done what needed to be done, on the 4th day of the new year, the couple stayed home chatting with the 3 elders. They also invited the elders to visit Yangqing for a while, or even to live there permanently. Now that flights were more accessible, tickets were easier to buy, and more routes were being added, they didn't have to worry about the long train journey for the elders anymore. Guangdong province was a pioneer in reform and opening up, and supplies weren't as strictly rationed as in other places. There were plenty of places to buy things, so there was no need to worry about food shortages. The three elders didn't refuse but also didn't agree, saying they would go when Lu Qingyan was no longer the party secretary. On the 5th day of the new year, Su Mo and Lu Chongzheng left first. They were lucky to have secured a direct flight from Harbin to Yangcheng without needing to transfer in Beijing. Sitting on the plane, Su Mo looked out the window at the golden clouds illuminated by the sun, feeling refreshed. As the sun rose, the great dragon of Huagua was about to take flight. End of the main text. This is the end of the main text. There will be several thousand words of extras to fill in the gaps. In 1983, Su Mo resigned from the investment office, though it wasn't really a resignation. At that time, the concept didn't quite exist. It was more like taking a leave without pay. A few years earlier, the process of reform and opening up had not gone smoothly, facing many obstacles. However, after several years of painful adjustments, things began to get on track. Starting from that year, more people began to take leave without pay to start their own businesses. Su Mo took advantage of this trend and left the investment office. During these years, Su Mo used her connections to attract a lot of investment, and the clothing industry in Yangcheng advanced several years ahead thanks to the collective efforts of everyone in the investment office. Now, after several years of development, Gaudi Street had grown to a certain scale, becoming the first individual market for clothing in the country, mainly selling fabrics, clothing, shoes, hats, and small fashion items, attracting travelers and vendors from all over the country. That year, the saying "from all directions, wealth is found in Guangdong" gradually became popular. People from other places saw Guangdong as a land of opportunity, and more people flocked there. In these years, the Su family's business took several steps forward. By the end of 1981, the clothing studio had upgraded to a clothing factory, and by mid-1983, it had over 600 employees and registered 2 clothing brands, with nearly 100 direct and franchise stores in major cities across the country. Additionally, during the government's public-private partnership reforms for certain factories, they invested in 3 textile mills and 2 shoe factories. The food factory grew more slowly due to logistics issues, but it still had over 200 employees, and there were more than 60 food shops across various locations. The fastest-growing sector was the consulting service company. With the reform and opening up, construction began booming in Guangdong as factories, houses, and industrial zones were built frequently. The transportation fleet had grown to nearly 100 vehicles. They separated from the original company and established a dedicated transportation company. The construction department was also spun off to create a specialized construction company, which now had over 300 employees. In an unclear environment, the Su family's business thrived, thanks to support from leaders and their willingness to invest. During the major flood disaster in 1981, the Su family donated all their profits from the previous 2 years to purchase supplies for the disaster area, earning praise as patriotic entrepreneurs from the leaders, and the Guangdong government awarded Su Tingqian an honor as a patriotic entrepreneur. Moreover, since 1980, the Su family had been donating money each year to support education in impoverished areas, donating books, establishing scholarships, and building school facilities. In recent years, the government had been promoting education, and the idea that no matter how poor, education cannot be neglected had taken root in many officials' minds. The Su family's actions undoubtedly aligned with the authorities. Thus, despite various controversies during the early reform period, the Su family's charitable initiatives shielded them from criticism, allowing them to quietly develop their businesses. By the time others noticed, the Su family's various industries had already grown significantly. However, by then, the pace of reform had advanced several years, and changes would no longer be influenced by individual actions or words. In this atmosphere, Su Zhongqing expressed his desire to return to the country. Su Zhongqing was getting older, and his health had declined in recent years. Although the medical environment in the U.S. was good, and given his health, he should have stayed there, the older generation often had a desire to return to their roots. He couldn't go back before, but now that he could, he naturally wanted to see his homeland again. Su Jing returned early to make arrangements. With Su Tingqian's help, he bought back the Western-style house where they used to live and hired someone to renovate it. Direct flights between China and the U.S. had started in January 1981, but only to Beijing. The Su family first flew to Beijing and then transferred to Hai City. To show respect for their elder, Su Tingda and Su Tingqian specially flew to Beijing to meet Su Jing. This time, in addition to Su Zhongqing, there were his three sons, Su Tingbang, Su Tingyi, and Su Tingli, along with a steward and a doctor to care for him. As for his wife, Zhao Shaoi, she was too old and didn't want to go through the hassle, so she stayed behind. Several daughters-in-law also remained in the U.S. to care for the elderly lady. Not bringing women and children back was partly due to concerns about potential accidents that could leave the whole family stuck. Even though Su Jing reassured them that the domestic environment had improved significantly, they were still worried since they had never returned personally. After disembarking, Su Zhongqing looked at the new airport, which rivaled those abroad, and felt a moment of disorientation and shock. It seemed the country was truly developing and reforming. Since the reform and opening up, the capital airport had begun expanding. In 1980, Terminal 1 was completed, and in January 1982, automatic doors, walkways, escalators, luggage systems, flight information displays, and closed-circuit television were put into use in the new terminal, aligning facilities with international standards. After all, the airport was the first gateway for foreign businesses entering the country, so it was naturally important. As they approached the exit, Su Zhongqing felt a bit nervous, experiencing a mix of excitement and anxiety about meeting relatives he hadn't seen in decades. When he saw the two middle-aged men next to Su Jing, his eyes immediately filled with tears. When he left, they were still young men, but now they were both grandfathers. Uncle, Tingbang, brother, Tingyi, brother, Tingli, brother. Seeing them come out, Su Tingda and Su Tingqian hurried over. Uncle, you've lost weight, Su Tingda said, his voice a bit choked. In his memory, Su Zhongqing had always been dignified, a stark contrast to the elderly man in the wheelchair before him. I'm old, so I've lost weight. You two brothers are doing well? Very well. Su Zhongqing held their hands tightly, tears falling. In my lifetime, I can see you again. That's enough. After a long separation, everyone was very emotional. Remembering the past brought tears to their eyes, and they chatted for a while, exchanging words. The airport staff had seen such scenes many times. Since last year, more and more overseas Chinese had returned for family visits, and there were almost daily tearful reunions at the airport. Once everyone calmed down, they finally headed to the hotel. After more than 10 hours of flying, Su Zhongqing was tired. He had a light meal at the hotel and then went to rest, attended to by the steward and doctor, while the brothers chatted. The next morning, the group took a flight back to Haishur. Since Su Zhongqing rarely returned, the entire Su family went to Haishur to visit their elders. After all, the older generation is aging, and this might be the last chance to meet. Even Su Yichen and Lu Chongjing took a 2-day break to join. Around the same time, Su Yichen, Su Yiyuan, and Lu Chongjing drove to the airport to pick them up. The cars were purchased by the Su family for business in Haishur, 2 BJ Jeeps and a new Santana. Previously, they kept a low profile, so the cars they bought were practical and mostly domestic models. This year, as the situation improved, they decided to buy better cars. The Santana may not seem special in later years, but at this time, it held a high status. Driving a Santana was comparable to driving a Rolls-Royce in later years. As the first joint venture car produced using imported technology in China, the Santana was initially used as an official vehicle for high-ranking government officials, available only to those at the ministerial level and above. Ordinary people without connections could not even buy it, no matter how much money they had. Those who could drive this car were wealthy and powerful, holding significant social status. Thus, even though the Santana was priced at 200,000 yuan, considered exorbitant, many who made their first fortune after the reform and opening up sought connections to buy one. The Su family also had to rely on connections to acquire two, one for Yangcheng and one for Haishur. In a society where appearances matter, some things are unavoidable. After picking them up, the group exchanged greetings and drove back to the villa. With their uncle's family back in the country, it was natural for them to be well hosted. Although there were local dishes abroad, they couldn't compare to the authentic ones from home. Su Tiqian invited two skilled chefs to prepare meals at the villa. They had lunch at home, making it convenient to send them back to rest afterward. Su Zhongqing's previous house was on the same street as the Su family's villa. However, after he went abroad, that house was nationalized. Recently, they had to put in some effort to help Su Jing buy back the villa. Upon arriving home, there was another round of introductions as the family members recognized each other. Seeing so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren made Su Zhongqing very happy, especially when he saw a few great-grandchildren, which filled him with joy. Among his grandchildren, only Su Tingbang's eldest son, Su Su, was married, but he had not yet had children. As he aged, he longed to see the next generation. Looking at the children who called him great-uncle, Su Zhongqing summoned the housekeeper to present the gifts he brought back for the younger generation. For the ladies, there was a set of precious jewelry for each, for the men, a luxury watch, and for the four children, a savings book with 100,000 yuan each. Su Mo noticed that the savings books were from Haisher Bank, likely prepared by Su Jing in advance. After lunch, Su Zhongqing's family returned to their villa to rest, as Su Jing had already prepared the essentials for them. Traveling internationally and adjusting to the time difference was tiring, even for the three Su brothers, let alone for the elderly Su Zhongqing, who was not in good health. For dinner, Su Tingqian invited the two chefs to cook for them at the villa, and the family did not disturb them, allowing them ample time to rest. During the few days Su Zhongqing adjusted to the time difference, the brothers not only took them around Haisher but also organized several gatherings, inviting many of Su Zhongqing's old friends and notable figures from the Haisher business community. It brought Su Zhongqing great joy to reconnect with friends he hadn't seen in decades, and his spirits improved day by day. He also gained a deeper understanding of the current investment environment in the country through his interactions with many business association members. After exploring Haisher and meeting everyone, the family prepared to go to the neighboring Su city to pay their respects at the graves. The Su family's ancestors were from Su city, and their ancestral tomb was located there. Due to previous circumstances, they had not been able to engage in superstitious practices, and because of certain issues, the Su family had not dared to visit for worship. Su Mo only learned about the restoration of the ancestral tomb when Su Tiqian mentioned it a couple of years ago. Su Zhongli's grave was previously in Haisher, but after the ancestral tomb was restored 2 years ago, it was moved to reunite with family. The main purpose of Su Zhongqing's return was to pay respects to his parents and ancestors. Over the years, he had made a name for himself in the United States, and as a returning overseas Chinese, he could not do so quietly. Su Yiyuan and Su Jing had already made arrangements the day before their visit. In the past, large families would leave branches behind to guard the ancestral home. The Su family, as a prominent family in Jiangnan, was no exception. Most members of the Su family were merchants. After the founding of the country, business was no longer allowed, so many returned to their hometowns to join their branches, forming a Su family village over decades. The coastal areas experienced rapid reform, and by 1983, Su City had already implemented land distribution, abolishing the commune system, and the brigade leaders had become village heads. When Su Yiyuan and Su Jing arrived at Su Family Village, they spoke to the village head and officials about Su Zhongqing's return for ancestral worship, offering a generous sum to have the village organize the event. After a few years of reform, the people's mindset had shifted, and they no longer shouted that capitalists were bad. The Jiangsu-Zhejiang-Shanghai area had many overseas Chinese. Since last year, many had returned, bringing gifts when they came home. Following the 10,000 yuan households, having overseas Chinese in the village became a point of pride for the locals. Which village had returning overseas Chinese became a topic of conversation among the locals, and it was something to boast about. When Su Tiqian funded the restoration of the ancestral tomb a couple of years ago, it brought glory to the village. However, in recent years, that glory had been overshadowed by several neighboring villages with returning overseas Chinese. Now that they heard that their village also had overseas Chinese coming to pay respects, the village officials were all excited, patting their chests to guarantee that everything would be arranged perfectly. Su Zhongqing understood the importance of relationships. After asking Su Tingqian how most returning overseas Chinese conducted themselves, he inquired about the situation there and asked Su Tingqian to help buy a large number of gifts and for Su Tingyi to withdraw a significant amount of money from the bank. When they set off for Su City, in addition to the few cars they were in, there were also 2 large trucks following behind to carry the gifts. The distance from Haishir to Sujia village isn't too far. It takes a little over 3 hours by car. Su Mo and Zhua Huiqin both know how to drive, so they took 4 kids along in a jeep. Zhua Huiqin felt a bit nervous. Although Fu Manhua had already told her what to pay attention to, she still asked Su Mo for confirmation during the trip. Zhua Huiqin's family is just an ordinary one. When they visit graves, it usually involves removing weeds and burning paper money. This is her first time participating in such a large ancestral worship event. She was worried about making a mistake in front of so many people and embarrassing Su Yichen. Most importantly, she noticed that her uncle's family is very strict about traditions and seems to have a sense of social hierarchy. While her 2 cousins were fine, her elder cousin made her feel inferior, as if he looked down on her. She didn't want to make a mistake and give them more reason to think poorly of her. Yes, she did come from a poor background, but she carries herself well and has made significant contributions in her role. She believes she is not inferior to them. Zhua Huiqin asked, and Su Mo explained the process of the grave visit they had experienced over the past 2 years. After the ancestral tomb was repaired, Su Mo had participated in the grave visits for the past 2 years, while Zhua Huiqin couldn't come due to work. This was her first time attending. This is basically the process, but since my uncle's family is back, I'm not sure if there will be anything different. Don't be nervous. Just follow the elders when the time comes, Su Mo said. I just see that my uncle's family is very strict about traditions, and I'm afraid of making a mistake and embarrassing Yichen, Zhua Huiqin replied. What traditions? They are just made by people. They are them, and we are us. Our family doesn't care about these things, Su Mo said. If it weren't for the good virtues of the Chinese culture, which emphasize politeness to distant elders, she would have wanted to confront Su Tingbang long ago. Just because he has some money, he acts superior, complaining about everything as if everyone should worship him. Does he really think people are being polite to him because he is a returning overseas Chinese? It's just because of her father and uncle. To put it bluntly, in the past 2 years, many overseas Chinese have returned without contributing anything to the country or society. Who would care about them? The common people welcome them mainly because their return can bring some benefits. If you are stingy and act superior, let's see if they pay attention to you. It's like those celebrities in later years who hire extras to create hype for themselves. There isn't much difference in essence. Thinking of this, Su Mo said to Zhua Huiqin, sister-in-law, don't worry about their opinions. You married into our family, and as long as my brother, uncle, and aunt think well of you, you don't need to care about anyone else's views. They're just here for a few days as guests. If we can get along, let's be polite. If they complain, we don't have to keep in touch. We don't have to maintain this relationship. Su Mo's words made Zhua Huiqin laugh, and the tension she felt eased a lot. She felt very fortunate to have married into such a family. Her husband is loving, and her in-laws are open-minded. Even her younger brother-in-law's family treats her with great respect. Previously, influenced by traditional views that glorify poverty, she thought the only difference between her and Su Yichen was that he came from a high-ranking family. However, over the past few years, her exposure to different ideas has broadened her perspective, and she realized that the gap between her and her husband is much more than that. But her in-laws and her brother-in-law's family have always treated her the same, and she is grateful and happy to be part of such a family. They took turns driving and soon joined the main group arriving at Sujia village. The village officials really know how to create an atmosphere. From a distance, they had hung a banner that read, welcomed Mr. Su Zhongqing back to the country for ancestral worship and even arranged a ceremonial procession. As soon as they got out of the car, they started playing drums and gongs. When the suona, a traditional wind instrument, sounded, Su Mo almost stumbled. She couldn't help but think of the saying, when the suona plays, it's either a wedding or a funeral. She hoped it wouldn't blow her uncle away. The village chief, along with several elders, went to greet Su Zhongqing and Su Tingqian's group. After some pleasantries, the procession led the way, and everyone marched toward the ancestral tomb. The tomb is located on a hillside with a view of the mountains and water. Su Mo doesn't know much about feng shui, but a place chosen by the Su family for their ancestral tomb must be a good spot. On the hillside, dozens of graves are scattered, all belonging to the ancestors of the Su family. Seeing the well-maintained ancestral tomb, Su Zhongqing felt very emotional. This is the benefit of having close relatives in the country. He had a friend in America who returned to visit family a few months ago and wanted to pay respects to his parents and ancestors, but he could barely find the graves. Unlike him, everything was well arranged. The people carrying the offerings had arrived a bit earlier and had already set up the 3 sacrificial animals and other offerings in front of the Su family's ancestral grave. Others had already burned incense at the graves of other ancestors, leading 1 stick of incense to the main ancestral grave for everyone to pay their respects together. A large group of people moved forward. As the main participants in this ancestral worship, Su Zhongqing's family stood in the front row, while Su Mo's family, along with village officials and some respected elders, stood in the second row, with other villagers standing casually. Before starting, someone sang the sacrificial words, followed by the ceremonial procession playing music. When the time came, everyone held incense and bowed 3 times. Once the incense and candles had burned down enough, they burned gold ingots and finally set off firecrackers. Su Jing had contributed a lot of money, so they had plenty of firecrackers, which went off for almost 10 minutes. After paying respects to the ancestors, the Su family also held a separate ceremony for their own ancestors. Having not visited his parents' graves for decades, Su Zhongqing pushed away the caretaker's support and knelt down to bow 3 times deeply. "Father, mother, your unfilial son Zhongqing has finally returned." After saying this, he was overcome with emotion, tears streaming down his face, and he could no longer speak, making those nearby misty-eyed as well. Once he was helped up, others came to assist in setting up the offerings, and they followed the same process to pay respects again. After paying respects to his parents, Su Zhongqing went to the grave of Su Zhongli and his wife, sitting alone for a long time without anyone accompanying him. Su Mo watched from a distance and noticed that her uncle's already thin figure seemed even more hunched. Because she had heard Su Jing mention him before, along with their interactions over the past few days, Su Zhongqing had always appeared to her as a dignified elder. His presence easily made one overlook the fact that he was now old and frail. At that moment, she truly realized that her uncle was now an elderly man nearing the end of his life. When someone from the village came to call them for lunch, the group finally left the ancestral tomb. Lunch was a communal meal for the entire village, with 50 to 60 tables set up, creating a lively atmosphere with a rich variety of dishes, and each table had cigarettes and alcohol. The cost of the banquet was naturally covered by Su Zhongqing. When Su Jing came, he gave the village officials 10,000 yuan to arrange a decent meal. Taking advantage of everyone being gathered for lunch, Su Zhongqing called the village chief over and said he had brought gifts for the villagers, 1 electric fan and 1 blanket for each household. In 1983, electric fans were still a rare item, costing over 100 yuan each. The blankets were also the trendy racial blankets, costing about 100 yuan each. He also prepared red envelopes for the elderly and children. For those over 60, he offered 50 yuan each, and for children under 18, 20 yuan each. He asked the village chief to help tally the numbers so they could distribute them after lunch. He also proposed funding the construction of a community center in the village, providing a place for villagers to gather after meals and for any major events. At the same time, he hinted that when the time is right, he would invest in setting up a factory in the village. The village chief was overjoyed upon hearing this. When Su Tingqian and the others repaired the ancestral tomb, they also rebuilt the school in the village and established scholarships, ensuring that children wouldn't have to worry about affording education, which greatly boosted their enthusiasm for learning. This year, over 30 children from their village were accepted into high school, and 5 even got into university. Among the surrounding areas, their village had the best-performing students. Now, with Mr. Su Zhongqing planning to invest in a factory, the village's economy would surely improve. The village chief was so excited that he quickly grabbed a loudspeaker and announced the good news to the villagers several times, showering them with compliments. Encouraged by the village chief, the villagers were very warm, and the lunch lasted until the afternoon. On the way back, Su Tingli felt a bit emotional, saying, "Our Su family is quite good, very warm and thoughtful. Even the ancestral graveyard is well maintained." I heard Shi Jihing say that when he accompanied his father back to visit relatives, nothing went smoothly. They couldn't eat or sleep well, and when they wanted to pay respects to their ancestors, the grave had been dug up. It took them several days and a lot of money to find out where it had been moved. He said he would only return once in this life and would never come back again. I think this trip back is quite good. After a while, I'll tidy up and bring a Zhen and the others back with me. I heard there are many beautiful places in the country, perfect for exploring our homeland's scenery. Su Zhongqing, who had been resting with his eyes closed, frowned and coldly interrupted, "Our smooth return is thanks to Tingda and Tingqian's arrangements. If you came back on your own, just try it." The good condition of the ancestral graveyard is also due to the efforts of those 2 brothers. Do you think it relies on the villagers? Do you know what our ancestral graveyard was called a couple of years ago in Sujia village? It was called Grave Mountain. Su Zhongqing's tone was somewhat cold. For over a decade, the villagers who passed away were buried there. When Tingda and Tingqian repaired the grave, they spent a lot of money to have those graves moved. If left unattended, in a few years, our ancestral graveyard would be like a mass grave. The feng shui would be completely destroyed. The grave wasn't dug up because those 2 brothers had connections with officials who secretly looked out for it. Otherwise, that land would have been cleared for farming long ago. Relying on those villagers, Su Tingli was taken aback by this sudden remark. "I thought you were giving them gifts and money, building activity centers and factories, so I assumed it was their doing. What I do is not based on what they have done, but for the reputation of the Su family. Our Su family used to be a prominent family in this area. We can't be worse than ordinary overseas Chinese, right? It's not worth it to let others gossip over a little money. In business, reputation and word of mouth are crucial. If we do this, when people from Sujia village talk about us, who wouldn't say the Su family is generous? Spending a little money to earn good words is a smart deal. If people have a good impression of the Su family here, when we expand our business, they will subconsciously choose us first." As Su Zhongqing spoke, he noticed the slightly confused look in his younger son's eyes and immediately fell silent. He really didn't want to teach his naive and carefree younger son, who only cared about painting and little else. He had to admit that he was not as good at educating children as Zhongli. Look at how well Tingda and Tingqian turned out, and even the 3 grandchildren were quite good. And what about him? Tingbang was arrogant and self-centered, always wanting to take advantage. Tingyi was decent but too emotional, easily indecisive when it came to family, and Tingli was even more so, a complete artist, oblivious to the outside world, focused only on his art. Among the grandchildren, only a Jing was promising. He was getting old, and many things were beyond his control. These years had been really tough. It seemed he needed to help a Jing clear the obstacles and pass on the responsibilities to him soon. Seeing Su Zhongqing stop talking, Su Tingli also fell silent, and the 2 traveled home in silence. Once home, Su Zhongqing called his 3 sons and Su Jing over. "I used to think that your uncle staying in the country and handing over family assets was foolish. Now I realize he is the truly wise one. He has kept our roots. Although we have achieved some success abroad over the years, you all know the hardships involved. While we have made some money, we actually have no status in America. We are just wealthy foreign merchants. We are Chinese, and that label won't change. The US boasts of freedom and tolerance, but even if we have their nationality, we are still seen as outsiders by those in power. When things are calm, they can be tolerant and everyone is good. But once there is a dispute between countries, we will be the first to be sacrificed. Over these years, while Tingda and Tingqian may not be as wealthy as us, they possess something we don't: power. Having money without power is like building a high building on a weak foundation. No matter how high it is, a strong wind can bring it all down. I have thought a lot these past few days. We left the country to escape some disasters, but we also lost our roots. Fortunately, it's not too late. The country has just opened its doors, and we still have a chance. Our roots are ultimately here. Over the years, our investments in Europe have not yielded good returns. I want to withdraw our investments from Europe and shift them back to the country. When the time is right, we can refocus on domestic opportunities. What do you think? I agree. Su Jing was the first to express his support. He had long been optimistic about the domestic market, and since everyone disagreed before, he was naturally glad to see his father have this idea now. I disagree, Su Tingbang opposed. I think it's feasible. The reform and opening up have been underway for some time, and it is still progressing steadily, which shows the country's determination. The mindset of our fellow countrymen has also changed. There are many people in the country, and the market is large. It's a good time to enter. Su Tingyi also supported the idea. Su Tingli had no objections. He usually didn't manage the family's business. What good is a large market? I heard that most workers in the country earn only 60 to 70 yuan a month. If consumers have no money, what can we invest in? Are we going to sell buns like Su Tingqian? What can 60 or 70 yuan do? You can't even buy a decent piece of clothing abroad. I heard from someone in the business association that Tingqian seems to have secured the mining rights for a coal mine. Let's see if we can ask him for help. If we get those mining rights, we can give him some shares as a reward. Su Tingyi shared his thoughts. Su Zhongqing waved his hand. We won't be able to get that. Domestic minerals are state-owned. Now, due to economic development needs, they allow private mining, but only for insiders. Foreign investments don't qualify to touch these industries. Tingqian can secure the mining rights because your uncle has always been a meritorious minister. He has conducted business properly over the years, earning money while also giving back to the country, which has earned him a good reputation. Plus, his children and relatives are all public officials, contributing to the country. Such people are trusted by those in power. Since ancient times, mining has been a business for the wealthy. When he first heard about it, Su Zhongqing was tempted, but after learning more, he dropped the idea. Some things are not for merchants like them, who come seeking profit. Jing, what do you think? Su Zhongqing asked. I believe the hotel, catering, and clothing industries have great investment value, Su Jing replied. He thought the real estate market should wait a bit longer. The current consumer power of the Chinese people wasn't enough for them to buy houses freely. Tell us more, Su Zhongqing encouraged. In recent years, with the reform and opening up, more and more foreign merchants have come to China, but there are very few high-end hotels. The first 5-star hotel in Yangqing opened in February this year. I visited it after returning, and the business is excellent. The hotel owner knows Xiao Imo and Yuan, and I asked them to inquire. It said that in just over half a year since opening, the profit has already reached several million, and breaking 10 million this year is not a problem. Building a 5-star hotel requires a large initial investment, but this area is currently a blank slate. More people will invest here in the future, and the market is big enough, with plenty of time to benefit from it. It's worth investing in. As for catering, I have 2 ideas. One is high-end dining aimed at foreign merchants and the first batch of wealthy individuals. The other is introducing foreign fast food brands for the domestic public. Both markets are large, with almost no competition, and have great potential. Regarding clothing, I think the clothing factory run by my little uncle is doing very well.
We can learn from them.
The domestic clothing market is substantial, and there is no competition between us. We can even cooperate and complement each other. Su Jing had long been prepared. even having strategies for implementation in mind. When he spoke, he was articulate and well-reasoned. Although Su Tingbang disagreed, everyone else present supported the idea. With a 3-1 vote, he naturally lost. The grandfather and grandchildren discussed domestic investments until dawn, ultimately deciding to visit Guangdong province first before determining a direction. The next day, Su Zhongqing shared his plans with Su Tingqian. Since his uncle was returning to invest in the country, Su Tingqian naturally offered his help. The following day, they all went to Yangqing. Su Zhongqing wanted to inspect the business of a 5-star hotel, so they stayed at that hotel in Yangqing. Fu Manhua and Zhuo Huiqin had work to attend to, so after spending one night in Yangqing, they said goodbye to Su Zhongqing and returned to Guizhou with the children. In the following days, Su Tiqian took Su Zhongqing and his group to visit their factory and company. He also organized a meeting with investors to introduce them to his network and took them on a 2-day tour of 3 economic zones in Guangdong province to assess the local investment environment. He even had Su Mo invite colleagues from the Investment Promotion Office to discuss the government's plans for the past 2 years, providing them with useful insights. Even Geng Chongqing made time to meet with Su Zhongqing and his group. Everything was arranged very well, and they received thorough support and guidance. What Su Zhongqing and his group learned in just a few days was something other investors might take 6 months to a year to discover. Su Zhongqing felt grateful and reminded Su Jing that once they invested back home, they must support each other and never harm their family's interests. After these few days of understanding, Su Zhongqing became even more optimistic about the domestic market. Seeing such potential for growth, he planned to have Su Jing return to manage operations at home while he focused on expanding the market there. As for his eldest son and his family, they had been assimilated over the years. Bringing them back might cause issues, so it was better for them to stay in the U.S. When the time was right, he would give the business in the U.S. to his eldest son and the domestic business to his second son. As for the youngest, since he hadn't contributed much to the business, he would allocate more assets and cash to him and give him some shares in both companies. Having gathered all the necessary information, Su Zhongqing decided not to delay in the country any longer. He hurried back to arrange everything and secure the funds for investment. The next day, Su Zhongqing and his group completed their paperwork and traveled from Shenzhen to Port City, then on to the U.S. They were accompanied by Su Yiyuan and Su Mo. The siblings appeared to be there to see Su Zhongqing off, but in reality, they were carrying items to be auctioned in Port City. The Su family had acquired mining rights, but the initial investment required was substantial. Most of the profits from several companies had been reinvested in production expansion, leaving limited funds available, so they needed to sell some items. Over the years, Su Mo and Lu Chongjing had borrowed under various pretenses and retrieved many valuable items. Although Su Tingda and Su Tingqian found it strange that Lu Chongjing could always find these items, they thought there might be special channels available to special forces and didn't investigate further, only advising Lu Chongjing to be careful not to let it affect his work. Money could be earned again, but if their future was compromised, that would be a serious matter. After sending Su Zhongqing to the airport, the siblings met with the auction organizers to hand over the items for auction. This time, they had brought a lot of items, including famous paintings, antique decorations, jade bracelets, and highly collectible gold jewelry. These items were valuable, and they had used some connections to bring them over. The organizers were thrilled to see what they had brought and promised to help them get a good price. In recent years, the awakening of public awareness on the mainland meant that such valuable items were rarely available. The auction was organized by Mr. Hua, who had a great reputation in Port City. The siblings had auctioned items before and trusted the organizers, so after handing over the items, they left. While waiting for the auction, the siblings went about their own activities. Both had been to Port City several times over the past 4 years, Su Yiyuan for business and Su Mo for work. They had friends there and wanted to visit and reconnect. While visiting friends, Su Mo also stopped by several pawn shops and secretly sold a lot of small yellow fish. She had many boxes of small yellow fish in her space, which were difficult to cash in on the mainland, so she would sell some each time she visited Port City. Since 1980, International gold prices had skyrocketed, reaching over $600 per ounce and stabilizing around $450 in the following years. A small yellow fish could sell for about 1,500 to 2,000 HKD. Later, Su Mo visited an old pharmacy and sold a few wild mountain ginseng roots. Wild mountain ginseng was not valued highly on the mainland yet, but in Port City, genuine wild mountain ginseng started at tens of thousands. The quality of the ginseng Su Mo had cultivated was exceptional, with each root fetching several tens of thousands. Over the years, the money Su Mo made from selling wild mountain ginseng and small yellow fish had accumulated to over 2 million. She had kept this money in her space and hadn't used it. From her friends, Su Mo learned that the real estate market in Port City was on the verge of collapse, with many properties being sold at low prices in recent months. Su Mo decided to spend her money while prices were low, planning to buy some properties and sell them later when prices rose. The turmoil in Port City's real estate market was influenced by the global economic crisis and negotiations regarding the city, leading to a crisis of confidence among the residents. Since 1982, property prices had been plummeting, with a collapse looming in 1983. Without hesitation, Su Mo found a real estate agent and expressed her property needs. At that time, many people were selling properties at low prices, and the agent quickly found several matching options for Su Mo. Currently, property prices in Port City ranged from about 4,000 to 7,000 HKD per square meter. At that time, the average wage for a worker in Port City was around 2,500 Hong Kong dollars, meaning 2 months' salary could buy 1 square meter of property, marking a true low point for real estate prices in such a valuable area. Su Mo spent a day with the agent and ultimately purchased an office and 2 residential units. The office was about 200 square meters, priced at around 6,000 Hong Kong dollars per square meter. Although the location was average now, Su Mo knew it would develop in a few years, so she decided to buy it. The 2 residential units were about 5,000 Hong Kong dollars per square meter, each around 60 square meters. Although they were in older buildings, the area had a lot of foot traffic, making it easy to rent out. After finding suitable properties, Su Mo signed a contract with the agent. The agent would handle all the paperwork for buying property in Port City for inland residents. They agreed to return the next day to sign the contract and make the payment. The next day, when Su Mo arrived with a bag full of cash, both the agent and the owner were taken aback, thinking she might be involved with a gang and worried about attracting trouble. This misunderstanding led to a swift completion of the paperwork, and within a day, Su Mo received 3 thick stacks of property deeds. It was impressive how quickly things moved in Port City. No wonder many investors from Hong Kong were overwhelmed by the efficiency when they first invested on the mainland. Buying property in Port City was different from the mainland. There were no property certificates, only documents issued by law firms, all printed on A4 paper in thick stacks. After purchasing the properties, Su Mo felt happy and treated herself to a nice meal at a high-end restaurant. As she was finishing her meal, she spotted Sui Yuan in a nearby jewelry store. She quickly finished eating and went over. By the time Su Mo arrived, Sui Yuan had already left. Since she was already in the store, Su Mo picked out a few pearl necklaces to take back as gifts for some elders. While waiting for the sales associate to wrap the items, her curiosity got the better of her, and she asked what Sui Yuan had just bought. The gentleman just bought a limited edition necklace released this season. There are only 3 in all of Port City, and it just arrived yesterday. Now, there's only 1 left. Would you like to see it? The sales associate said with a bright smile, quickly retrieving the necklace from the display. This jewelry store was considered mid-range, and the pieces were not cheap. Su Mo ended up buying 3 pearl necklaces. Seeing her attire, the sales associate assumed she was a wealthy young lady and eagerly recommended more items. Su Mo looked at the necklace, which had a pink pearl pendant with diamonds, paired with a silver chain. It looked understated yet luxurious, and was perfect for young women. Noticing that no one at home would wear it, she thought Sui Yuan must have bought it as a gift for a client. After looking at the necklace, she asked the sales associate to put it back. She generally didn't wear jewelry, so she didn't make a purchase. This little incident quickly faded from Sumo's mind. 2 days later, the siblings returned to the country with millions from the auction and soon got back to their busy work. A month later, when Sumo had a meal with Xiao Huaqing, she noticed the necklace around her neck and nearly dropped her jaw in shock. She never expected her second brother to make such a big purchase right under everyone's noses. Yes, Sui Yuan is in love. For a long time, Sui Yuan had no interest in dating or starting a family. He enjoyed his solitary life and saw no need to have someone else managing him. He thought it was better to focus on business instead. He didn't feel the pressure to have children, as his older brother and younger sister already had 2 kids each, and they were all doing well. When he got older, he wouldn't have to worry about being alone. So, Sui Yuan always believed he would be the second single man in the Su family after Geng Chongqing. Until he met Xiao Huaqing. The young girl was his sister's apprentice and often came to see her, so she was quite familiar with their family. At first, Sui Yuan thought she was simply a naive girl. Although a bit clumsy, she was eager to learn and had a positive attitude. A few times during business meetings, he saw her looking downcast after a deal fell through, like a little quail. Seeing her so pitiful and knowing she was his sister's apprentice, he helped her a few times. The girl appreciated his help and occasionally returned the favor, which made them grow closer. There were often tasks at the company that needed to go through the investment office, and since his sister was busy, he asked the girl to handle some of them. Before he realized it, Sui Yuan found himself thinking about her more and more. If he didn't see her for a few days, he felt restless. After reading many books, he realized he might have developed feelings for her. Sui Yuan was shocked and thought he was being ridiculous. She was 11 years younger than him, and if she were a few years older, he could almost be her father. How could he be chasing after someone so much younger? Moreover, she was his sister's apprentice. If his sister found out he was interested in her, he would be in big trouble. Realizing this, Sui Yuan began to distance himself from Xiao Huaqing. However, matters of the heart are uncontrollable. The more he tried to pull away, the more he thought about her. It truly fit the saying, "A day without seeing you feels like madness." After some time apart, he felt like he could see her face even with his eyes closed. Sui Yuan was alarmed and suspected he was ill. During a business trip to the port city, he even went to the hospital for a checkup. Though the doctor chuckled, he responsibly told him he had a heart problem with no cure, advising him to follow his feelings and not suppress himself. But how could he just follow his heart? If he did, it would lead to big trouble. What could ease his worries? Only alcohol. But that didn't seem to help much. One day, after drinking quite a bit, he found himself at the girls' dormitory building, running into her just as she returned from work. Thinking it was another illusion, he ended up sharing many of his feelings with her. To his surprise, she not only smiled but also cried, saying, "I feel the same way." The ancients were not wrong. Thank you, alcohol. It made his dreams come true. However, the girl seemed shy and wanted to keep it a secret from her family. Although he wanted to shout to the world that he, Sui Yuan, was in a relationship, he had to respect her wish to keep it quiet for now. What could he do? In their family, the tradition was to listen to the wife. How could he be any different? He decided to follow her wishes. But looking at such a lovely girl, not being able to see her every day and having to keep it secret made him a bit impatient. So, when he was taking his uncle and others to the port city, he bought her a limited edition necklace. She loved it and looked beautiful wearing it, but he was even happier. Sure enough, it wasn't long before his sister asked him if he was hiding anything from her. Feigning ignorance, he eventually revealed everything after she pressed him a few times. His sister probably thought she had stumbled upon something significant. She wouldn't believe he couldn't see her enjoying a big meal in such a noticeable place. But his sister was quite ambitious and worked hard at her own company. It took her a long time to invite the girl to dinner, making him wait for nothing. Humph. Sui Yuan's relationship news hit like a bombshell, causing Fu Manhua to skip class and rush to Yangcheng. Over the years, she had tried many connections to introduce her son to potential partners, but he never showed interest, either refusing to meet or scaring the girls away. She had lost hope and accepted that her son might remain single. So when he suddenly told her he was dating, how could she not be shocked? After years of reform and opening up, the atmosphere in Guangdong had changed significantly. Many new people had come in, bringing along some questionable influences. She worried he might be led astray by the wrong person. She would rather her son stay single than let someone inappropriate into their home. After learning more about the situation from Su Mo, Fu Manhua's heart went from relief to worry again. The girl was young, from a good family, had a decent job, was educated, and had studied abroad. Could she really be interested in her son? Although Yuen was handsome and had some wealth, he was already 34 years old, which was a disadvantage. If it were a girl with average conditions, their family could rely on external factors to bridge the age gap. But with Qiao Huaqing's background, marrying Yuen might seem like a compromise to outsiders. The girl was only 23 and might not want to marry so soon. It was possible she just wanted to date Yuen for a couple of years and then part ways if it didn't work out. After all, today's young people are different from those in her time. Dating doesn't always lead to marriage. She understood her son well. Despite his carefree attitude, he had a pure heart. Once he fell in love, it would be for life. If the girl dated him and then broke up, her son might end up lonely forever. Feeling uneasy, Fu Manhua asked Su Mo to arrange a dinner with Qiao Huaqing the next day. After the meal, Fu Manhua liked Qiao Huaqing very much. Having met many people, she appreciated the girl's genuine and straightforward nature. It was rare to find a girl her son liked and who also liked him back, so Fu Manhua thought it was time to settle things. When she returned home, she instructed Su Tingda to find out more about the Qiao family, especially the elders' preferences. Although Su Mo knew some details, it was only surface level. After meeting with Fu Manhua, Qiao Huaqing realized her family didn't know about her relationship yet, so she quickly called home. When Qiao's mother learned that her daughter was dating a 34-year-old businessman in Yangcheng, she was furious, fearing Qiao Huaqing had been deceived by foreign investors. Feeling her blood rush to her head, she didn't want to hear the details over the phone. She immediately took leave, packed her bags, and booked the next flight to Yangcheng. She had to see for herself who had the audacity to deceive her daughter. The Qiao family was well known in diplomatic circles. Qiao Huaqing's grandfather was a famous diplomat, and most of her relatives worked in the foreign ministry, making them a prominent family in Beijing. After Qiao Huaqing graduated early, her family wanted to place her in the foreign ministry. However, during her exchange program, she was influenced by Su Mo and was determined to join the investment promotion agency instead. As the youngest daughter, she was quite spoiled by her elders. When she insisted on going, they couldn't refuse her. Plus, they learned that following Su Mo would provide her with valuable experience, so they agreed to let her go to Yangcheng. When Qiao Huaqing learned from her father that her mother was on her way to Yangcheng, she was shocked and felt she might be in trouble. She quickly found Su Yuen and explained the situation. Su Yuen had been trying to think of a reason for Qiao Huaqing to introduce him to her family, and he didn't expect the opportunity to come so soon. He felt delighted but kept a serious demeanor, reassuring the girl that he would handle it. They hurried to the airport to pick her mother up. When Qiao's mother saw Su Yuen, she secretly sighed in relief. Thankfully, he wasn't the kind of middle-aged man she had imagined. After observing him, she noticed he was tall, handsome, well-dressed, and didn't look like someone in his 30s at all. She guessed her naive daughter might have been fooled by his good looks. Although Qiao's mother wasn't thrilled about her daughter dating someone much older, she couldn't show her disapproval outright since he was polite and well-mannered. She remained distant and courteous. When Su Yuen suggested going out for dinner, she politely declined. Not wanting to engage further until she understood the situation better, she simply accepted his offer to drop them off at Qiao Huaqing's dorm. Su Yuen safely escorted the mother and daughter to the dorm and told Qiao Huaqing he would arrange for food to be delivered, then left gracefully. His composed behavior earned him some points in Qiao's mother's eyes. What she disliked most were those who were pushy and lacked subtlety. When they returned home, Qiao's mother frowned and asked about her situation. Among the Qiao family, Qiao Huaqing feared her mother the most, so she explained everything clearly. After listening, Qiao's mother felt relieved but also frustrated. Since he was from the Su family, his background should be fine. However, her daughter had developed feelings for him just because he helped her a few times, which was quite inappropriate. With the opening up of the country, many spies had infiltrated in recent years. Therefore, the government established the National Security Department this year to protect socialist modernization, strengthen anti-espionage efforts, and ensure national security. Families like theirs, with members in important positions, were prime targets for spies. So, when Qiao's mother heard that Qiao Huaqing was involved with someone like that, she rushed over. After all, they had a nearby example, a family they knew had a daughter who married a returning investor, only to find out 2 months later that he was a spy, which caused significant issues for them, and their promotion prospects vanished. Xiao's mother pointed at Qiao Huaqing's forehead. Have you forgotten everything I taught you since childhood? How can you be so indiscreet? He helped you, but it might just be because of Suemo. You can't be so foolish to fall for him. Besides, he is much older than you. Are you sure you can handle him? Don't end up being sold out while counting money for someone else. Of course not. He treats me very well, Qiao Huaqing pouted. How is he that much older? Isn't Grandpa 10 years older than Grandma? They've lived happily together. Qiao's mother was momentarily speechless. Anyway, I don't care. I like him. His parents and family like me too, so you can't ruin this, Mom. Qiao's mother. What did she do to deserve this lecture? They say you can't keep a daughter too close, and it's absolutely true. Just as Qiao's mother was about to lecture her daughter, a meal sent by Su Yun arrived, which distracted her and eased her frustration. After dinner, Qiao's mother called Qiao's father to inform him of the situation and asked him to find someone to investigate the Su family further. Fu Manhua learned from Su Yun that Qiao's mother had come to Yangqing, so she quickly bought several gifts for Su Yun to deliver and asked him to see if it was convenient to meet. Since her son was much older than Qiao's daughter, she needed to take the initiative. The Su family had a good reputation, and the Qiao family would soon find out what they needed to know. After hearing what Qiao's father said, Qiao's mother felt satisfied. So when Su Yun mentioned that Fu Manhua wanted to meet her, she agreed. She couldn't avoid it. Seeing her daughter so determined to marry him was painful. It was better for both families to meet and clarify their relationship. In recent years, many people had been sentenced or executed for crimes, so it wouldn't be good if the two kids did something reckless and got reported. After meeting, Fu Manhua felt that it was not easy for her son, who was much older, to finally find a partner, so she treated Qiao's mother very well. Qiao's mother thought her daughter was being foolish in love, so she was also very polite to Fu Manhua. The two women hit it off and had a pleasant meal, even scheduling a time to visit the Qiao family. A month later, Su Tingda, Fu Manhua, Su Tingqian, and Mo Yulong, the four elders, visited Beijing with generous gifts for a formal meeting. Both families had similar backgrounds, and the young couple was very close, so they set a wedding date during this meeting. It was scheduled for March 1984, a chosen auspicious day. After returning from Beijing, Su Yun couldn't stop smiling and began preparing for the wedding. He wanted to give his little girl an unforgettable ceremony. To achieve this, he even invited a wedding planner from Hong Kong. Su Yun searched many places but couldn't find a suitable venue. Just then, Su Jing returned to invest in the country with family funds. Su Jing planned to start in the hotel and catering industry. Su Yun thought the high-end restaurant he mentioned would be perfect for the wedding and shared his idea. Su Jing was considering how to promote the restaurant once it was built. If Su Yun's wedding was held there, it would be a great opportunity for publicity. The brothers agreed that it would benefit both sides and decided on the spot. They worked hard together and finally completed the restaurant before Su Yun's wedding. The restaurant had 3 floors, decorated luxuriously, and was the first high-end hotel in Guangdong province. It had several banquet halls, the largest of which could accommodate over 100 tables, and there were also many private rooms and entertainment facilities like karaoke. As the times changed, the Su family needed an opportunity to show that they were back on their feet. So, Su Tingde didn't restrict Sui Yuan from being low-key. He could handle things as long as he didn't violate social norms, and being high-profile was fine. Every penny of the Su family's wealth was legitimate, so they weren't afraid of scrutiny. Sui Yuan hired a wedding planner, set up a stage, and created various decorations, which was quite unprecedented in the country. On the wedding day, guests gathered, including many big names from politics, business, and the military, making it a highly anticipated event. It even attracted reporters who covered what was considered a century wedding at the time. One reporter compared this wedding to one he had attended recently in his hometown in the Northwest, highlighting how they seemed to belong to two different worlds, sparking lively discussions and deepening people's recognition of the reforms. After all, no one wants to live poorly. All these events had nothing to do with Sui Yuan. He didn't care. He was just grateful that he finally married his little girl. From now on, he would have someone to share his twilight with, someone to ask him if his porridge was warm. 1984 was a year full of significant events. The wave of business started that year, and going into business became a popular phrase across the country. Many well-known companies, such as Lenovo, Haier, Vank, and TCL, were founded that year, which is now regarded as the beginning of modern Chinese enterprises. Time is money. Efficiency is life was the loudest slogan of the year and best represented the spirit of reform and opening up. That year, residents began to receive identification cards. The railway troops also left the stage, transitioning to the Ministry of Railways. Border conflicts continued, and large military parades stirred patriotic feelings among the people. The song My Chinese Heart became popular across the country, expressing the sentiments of all descendants of Yan and Huang worldwide. The issue of Hong Kong was also resolved that year, with the UK and China officially signing a joint declaration. In this vibrant and rapidly changing era, many things transformed without people realizing it. Sui Yuan, who thought he would be single for life, married Wang Suimei, believing that marrying one person meant a lifetime commitment, but ended up getting divorced. The story goes back a few years, starting with the arrival of Zheng Guosheng's parents. When the elderly couple arrived, they learned that Wang Suimei earned only 60 yuan a month and considered bringing some of their grandchildren from their hometown to work. Zheng Guosheng was reluctant to speak up, so they approached Lu Chongjing themselves. At that time, Zheng Guosheng had already reported Su's business dealings in a letter, which Lu Chongjing was aware of. He refused to get involved in the Yu family's business, stating that even if he could, he wouldn't help someone who stirs up trouble, and he made it clear he would not assist them. He even ambiguously suggested that they should listen to Zheng Guosheng's opinion, implying that if he acted on his own, it would offend people. To the uneducated elderly couple and Zheng Xiaodi, it seemed that Zheng Guosheng was afraid that his brothers would outshine him and affect his status at home, so he asked Lu Chongjing not to arrange jobs for them. Lu Chongjing generally disdained such backdoor manipulation, but Zheng Guosheng's actions were so distasteful that he decided to return the favor by giving him some minor obstacles to annoy him, planning to deal with him openly later. Sure enough, after returning home, Zheng Laohan confronted Zheng Guosheng. When Zheng Guosheng heard they had approached Lu Chongjing, he exploded, feeling they had embarrassed him, leading to a fight between father and son. At that moment, Zheng Guosheng was more concerned about sending his parents back to avoid further embarrassment than about Wang Suimei. However, it was easy to invite the gods, but hard to send them away. Before arriving, Zheng Laohan and his wife had boasted in the village that they were going to enjoy life in Yangqing, so they were unwilling to return. No matter what Zheng Guosheng said, the elderly couple refused to listen. When he pressed them, they went to the management office to complain about Zheng Guosheng's unfilial behavior. In the end, Zheng Guosheng had no choice but to compromise. His parents stayed, while only Zheng Xiaodi returned home. The Zheng brothers were inherently selfish. Zheng Xiaodi, feeling resentful for not getting a job, vented his anger on Zheng Guosheng. After returning, he told their other two brothers about it. As a result, Zheng Guosheng's two younger brothers also grew to resent him. The three brothers spread rumors, and with some exaggeration, it became known in their hometown that after Zheng Laohan and his wife went to Yangcheng, they found jobs with a monthly salary of 60 yuan for their sons and grandsons. However, Zheng Guosheng was afraid his brothers would succeed and ruin his status, so he sabotaged it. Originally, Zheng Guosheng was the most successful one in the area, with a good reputation over the years. After this incident, his reputation changed drastically, and many people lamented that they could know a person's face, but not their heart. When Zheng Guosheng heard about this from other relatives, he was furious and called his brothers, but no one paid him any attention. He returned home to ask his parents to clarify the situation. However, Zheng Laohan and his wife were already unhappy with Zheng Guosheng wanting to send them back and thought they could use this situation to pressure their eldest son into securing jobs for them. When they couldn't reach an agreement, another argument broke out. During that time, the Zheng household felt like a battlefield, with frequent small and large fights. Zheng Guosheng's good reputation in the community was significantly affected. Zheng Guosheng naturally confronted Lu Chongzheng, accusing him of stirring trouble. Lu Chongzheng simply repeated what he had said before, dismissing him with, "I spoke the truth. Your parents misunderstood." Zheng Guosheng had no way to argue since Lu Chongzheng hadn't said anything wrong. It was his parents who had misinterpreted the situation. To make matters worse, Zheng Laohan and his wife, who had been local emperors back home, revealed their true colors over time, becoming arrogant and offending many elderly people who had come with them. When those elders returned home and shared their experiences, they didn't blame the elderly couple but placed the blame on Zheng Guosheng. Zheng Guosheng, already troubled by family issues and targeted at work, made several mistakes and received a reprimand. He had always been an average worker, and without any significant achievements, he could have waited a few more years for promotion. Now, with a reprimand, his prospects were likely halted. Later, Zheng Guosheng learned that his parents had offended people, leading to him being targeted, which made him furious, and he began to control their behavior, further straining their relationship. Unlike Zheng Guosheng's career setbacks, Wang Suimei's career was thriving. Wang Suimei was already good at speaking and bold, otherwise, she wouldn't have dared to be a middleman before. After opening a new store, Su Tiqian transferred Wang Suimei to work as a sales clerk there. Although the base salary for a sales clerk was low, there were commissions, and the new store was in a prime location in a newly developed area with many foreign companies and workers, leading to excellent business. In her first month there, her salary exceeded 70 yuan. As more customers came and business improved, her salary increased, and within 2 years, Wang Suimei's earnings surpassed Zheng Guosheng's. For someone like Zheng Guosheng, this was a tremendous humiliation that he could not tolerate. So, he began to act out again, making sarcastic remarks about Wang Suimei and nitpicking at her. The couple's relationship, which had softened due to their conflict with his parents, deteriorated once more. Over the years, Wang Suimei had seen a lot, and her mindset had changed significantly from when she was a housewife, so she wouldn't let him suppress her. They often argued and even considered divorce. Later, when Wang Suimei's eldest son started dating, her daughter was in her senior year of high school, and her youngest son was in the 3rd year of junior high, all at crucial moments in their lives. For the sake of her children's futures, Wang Suimei had to soften her stance and tolerate Zheng Guosheng more, thinking that if she could endure, they could get through life together. However, Zheng Hongxia's failure in the college entrance exam completely ignited Wang Suimei's anger. The Zheng family has been noisy for the past few years, which has greatly affected the children's studies. Especially Zheng Hongxia, who isn't particularly talented. Her decent grades come from her hard work. Before the old couple from the Zheng family arrived, Wang Suimei hardly let her help with household chores, allowing her to focus solely on her studies. Having suffered from a lack of education herself, Wang Suimei didn't want her daughter to face the same fate. Moreover, with examples like Su Mo and Lu Xiaolan, who successfully entered university, she naturally placed a high value on her children's education. However, the elderly Zheng couple had grown lazy over the years in their hometown, and they weren't likely to change their habits after moving to the family compound. Their daily routine consisted of chatting and boasting with other elderly residents, doing nothing at home. The couple also favored boys over girls. In their view, it was enough for a girl to be able to support herself. Spending money on her education was a waste. They thought it would be better for her to work and earn money for the family, and when the time was right, marry and bring in a dowry. But in the family compound, girls were mostly focused on their studies, so the couple couldn't openly criticize that without appearing backward. While they didn't say much publicly, they always directed Zheng Hongxia to do chores when she returned from school, including making lunch. Zheng Hongxia, being obedient and raised in a time when filial piety was emphasized, didn't want to cause trouble or embarrassment, so she complied with the elders' requests. Zheng Hongfei noticed this and wanted to inform Wang Xuemei, but Zheng Hongxia, feeling sorry for her mother and wanting to avoid conflict, stopped him. She didn't want the family to argue every day, especially after their grandparents arrived, as they had already caused enough embarrassment. Cooking and doing chores weren't too difficult. At this age, girls are sensitive and have their own pride, wanting to present a happy family image and show that they are loved by their elders. Wang Xuemei was busy with work, leaving early and returning late. She didn't notice anything unusual, and Zheng Guosheng, who was always hands-off, wouldn't care as long as the family's image was good. By the time Wang Xuemei discovered the situation, Zheng Hongxia's grades had already fallen to the bottom of her class. Initially, when Zheng Hongxia's grades dropped, Wang Xuemei asked the teacher, who explained that it was normal for some students to struggle when starting high school and that with adjustment and effort, they could catch up. So, Wang Xuemei didn't worry too much and encouraged Zheng Hongxia to study harder. However, as time went on, Wang Xuemei noticed Zheng Hongxia's grades continued to decline. After pressing for details, she learned from Zheng Hongfei that Zheng Hongxia came home every day after school, not only unable to eat, but also having to cook. After eating, she had to help the elderly with laundry. With such little time during lunch, Zheng Hongxia had no chance to rest. The hot weather in Yangcheng made it hard to focus in the afternoon without a nap, which naturally affected her studies. High school already has a heavy workload, and this ongoing situation created a vicious cycle, causing her grades to drop further. Upon learning this, Wang Xuemei was furious and had a big argument with the elderly couple, then immediately sent both children to board at school. Zheng Hongxia started boarding in the second semester of her sophomore year, and Wang Xuemei hired a tutor for her every Sunday. After more than a year of effort, her grades improved. As long as she maintained her performance, getting into a university wouldn't be a problem. Normally, having a college student in the family would make most elders proud. However, the thinking of Zheng Guosheng and his wife was quite different. In recent years, with the reforms, the cost of living in Yangcheng had risen significantly compared to a few years ago. Although college tuition was still free and the government provided living subsidies, those subsidies were insufficient against the rising prices. Most students needed additional financial support from their families. An elderly woman in the compound had a granddaughter who got into a university in Yangcheng the previous year. Zheng's wife learned from her that the family had to provide an extra 20 to 30 yuan monthly for living expenses. This was huge news for the elderly couple. Zheng Guosheng had previously cut off the 20 yuan he gave his parents to pressure them to return home, explaining that living expenses here were high. After a big argument, they settled on giving them 10 yuan a month, which had remained unchanged for years. 10 yuan was hardly enough in today's Yangcheng. It wouldn't even cover a decent meal. The couple had already spent a lot of their savings over the years. While public sector salaries had increased slightly, Zheng Guosheng's monthly income was still just over 200 yuan. With such a small salary, supporting a family of 6, especially with 2 men who smoked and drank, as well as 2 middle and high school students, while maintaining a decent standard of living, was challenging. The elderly couple was aware of this situation and worried that if their granddaughter went to college, they might lose the meager 10 yuan they were receiving. As for Wang Xuemei's salary, knowing what kind of people Zheng Guosheng's parents were, they both agreed not to reveal it to them. Therefore, the elderly couple believed Wang Tsuemei was still earning her previous salary of 60 to 70 yuan. They were extremely selfish and would not allow their benefits to be harmed. After discussing it, they decided to prevent Zheng Hongxia from getting into college. On the day of the college entrance exam, Zheng's wife unusually acted kindly, saying some proud words about Zheng Hongxia being the pride of the Zheng family, and even cooked her 2 fried eggs and a bowl of noodles. However, she secretly added a harmful substance to the noodles. Once Zheng Hongxia entered the exam room, she soon began to have stomach issues, causing her to fail the first subject. Wang Tsuemei took 2 days off for Zheng Hongxia's exams and borrowed a motorcycle from Su Mo for convenience. Seeing her daughter come out of the exam room looking lost, Wang Tsuemei's heart sank. When Zheng Hongxia cried about her stomach problems, Wang Tsuemei felt anxious, but tried to comfort her, encouraging her to stay calm and do well in the remaining exams. Even if she couldn't get into a university, getting into a vocational college would still be good. Wang Tsuemei quickly took Zheng Hongxia to see a doctor. After hearing the situation, the doctor suggested it might have been due to something unclean she ate in the morning and prescribed some medicine. Wang Tsuemei regretted letting her daughter eat the noodles cooked by her grandmother. At that time, she hadn't considered that Zheng's wife might have tampered with the food. She just thought she was careless and unhygienic, possibly not cooking things thoroughly. After all, which normal grandparent would harm their own granddaughter? Learning from this experience, Wang Tsuemei began to cook all of Zheng Hongxia's meals herself. Sure enough, after that, Zheng Hongxia didn't have any more stomach issues during her exams, which relieved Wang Tsuemei. But on the last afternoon, something went wrong again. After lunch, Zheng Hongxia lay down to rest and soon started vomiting and having diarrhea. Wang Tsuemei hurriedly took her to the military hospital, and naturally, she couldn't take the last exam. The doctor who examined Zheng Hongxia was a very experienced physician. After assessing her condition and asking Wang Tsuemei about her daughter's diet over the past few days, he diagnosed that she had likely ingested a laxative, probably croton oil. The doctor called Wang Tsuemei aside to share his diagnosis with her. Wang Tsuemei was stunned. She had thought her daughter was suffering from acute gastroenteritis due to stress from the college entrance exam, but it turned out she had ingested croton oil by mistake. However, Wang Tsuemei had prepared all the meals herself over the past few days. If croton oil had been mixed in, everyone should have had diarrhea, not just Hongxia. Aside from the first day when her grandmother made her noodles, every meal after that was the same as everyone else's, with nothing special. Wang Tsuemei felt extremely guilty and tried hard to recall where things had gone wrong. Suddenly, she froze. She remembered that at noon, Zheng's grandmother had gone to the kitchen to help serve the soup that Zheng Hongxia drank. Although everyone ate the same, since it was exam time, Wang Tsuemei always made sure to give her daughter a larger portion of meat. That afternoon, she had cooked a soup with lean meat and vegetables, and as usual, she had served a bowl with more meat for Zheng Hongxia. Wang Tsuemei felt a chill run down her spine and was afraid to think further. Could there really be such a malicious and heartless person in the world? To give her own granddaughter croton oil during the college entrance exam, trying to ruin her future. But Hongxia had always been healthy and rarely got sick. Yet just 3 days into the exam, she had diarrhea for 2 days. The first time was after eating the noodles her grandmother made, and the second time was after drinking the soup her grandmother served. Everything seemed too coincidental for Wang Tsuemei not to suspect. Wang Tsuemei was incredibly angry, wishing she could go back and confront that cruel old woman right away, but her extreme anger made her calm down. She needed to find evidence first. Otherwise, if she caused a scene, those 2 old folks would deny it, and it would end up being her fault. After ensuring Zheng Hongxia was settled in the hospital for 4 fluids, Wang Tsuemei went to find Su Mo. She had no experience in gathering evidence and was worried about making things worse, so she decided to consult Su Mo first. Su Mo had been at the garment factory for the past few days, and Wang Tsuemei waited a while before finally seeing her. After hearing Wang Tsuemei's story, Su Mo was also shocked, but considering Zheng Guoxing's character, it seemed somewhat understandable. Coincidentally, Lu Changzheng was in Yangqing during this time, so Su Mo called him. Lu Chongjing was currently assessing new recruits and took this matter as a task to investigate. The actions of Zheng's old man and old woman were not discreet. Those who were trained quickly gathered results by evening. A few days ago, the two old folks had gone to a clinic claiming they were constipated and obtained some croton oil. At that time, hospital management was not as strict, so it was accessible. After receiving the news, Su Mo called Wang Suimei. After hanging up, Wang Suimei felt like a volcano about to erupt but managed to suppress her emotions and returned home without revealing anything. When the two old folks went out for a walk after dinner, Wang Suimei entered their room to search and quickly found the package of croton oil. However, she didn't take it out immediately. Instead, she put it back and returned to the living room to wait. When Zheng Guoxing returned home from work that night, Wang Suimei exploded, angrily accusing Zheng's grandmother of giving croton oil to Zheng Hongxia, causing her to miss one exam and nearly fail another. Zheng Guoxing was startled, but didn't believe his parents would do such a thing and told Wang Suimei not to make wild accusations. Zheng's old man and old woman were initially panicked, but seeing their son on their side, they also protested, claiming they would never harm their granddaughter and had never even seen croton oil. Wang Suimei took Zheng Guoxing into their room and, in front of them, pulled out the package of croton oil. Wang Suimei was too quick for the old couple to stop her, and upon seeing the croton oil revealed, they quickly turned the blame back on her, saying she had planted it to frame them and get rid of them. The two old folks made a scene in the yard, crying and shouting, attracting many onlookers from the family compound, and Wang Suimei let them make a fuss. When enough people had gathered to watch, Wang Suimei asked them again, "Are you sure you've never seen this package of croton oil?" The old couple cried and insisted they had never seen it. Their acting was quite good, making it seem like they were wronged by their daughter-in-law. Once they finished their performance, Wang Suimei detailed when they went to which clinic, which doctor they saw, and the reason they were prescribed croton oil. Upon hearing that Wang Suimei knew everything, Zheng's old man and old woman were instantly dumbfounded. The onlookers, seeing the old couple's expressions, looked at them as if they were monsters. If they had a granddaughter who could get into college, they would spoil her. Yet these two old folks had given her croton oil, not wanting her to succeed. The country had long promoted gender equality, discouraging favoritism towards boys over girls. These two were not only backward in thinking but also malicious. If they dared to give croton oil this time, who knew what they might do next? The onlookers unanimously decided to keep their distance from the two. That night, after such a scene, Zheng Guoxing's reputation was completely tarnished. Zheng Guoxing scolded his parents and then turned to blame Wang Suimei, asking why she hadn't told him earlier when there was evidence, instead of causing a scene for everyone to see. Wang Suimei realized that Zheng Guoxing only cared about his own face and showed no concern for their daughter's future, which broke her heart completely. Right then, she brought up divorce, not wanting to live with someone so rotten any longer. She feared for her children's future. Zheng Guoxing naturally refused, angrily telling Wang Suimei not to make a fuss, and stormed off. However, he underestimated Wang Suimei's determination. The next day, Wang Suimei went to the logistics department to speak with the leadership about her intention to divorce Zheng Guoxing. After all, military marriages are not easy to dissolve. They needed the army's approval. The logistics department would not advise against the divorce. They had to mediate when an officer wanted to divorce, so they quickly called both parties in to understand the situation. When Zheng Guoxing learned that Wang Suimei had gone to the logistics department, he turned pale. During the mediation, Wang Suimei did not spare Zheng Guoxing's feelings and laid out all the grievances she had endured over the years, making him furious. The leadership learned that the catalyst was Zheng Guoxing's parents, and after discussing with him, they intervened and persuaded Zheng's old man and old woman to return to their hometown. The old couple realized they had caused a big mess and, after confirming that Zheng Guoxing would still send them 20 yuan a month, reluctantly agreed to go back. But Wang Suimei remained firm on the divorce and applied for employee housing at the factory, moving out with Zheng Hongxia and Zheng Hongfei. The logistics department mediated several times without success. After more than a year of back and forth, When Wang Tsueme threatened to hire a lawyer for divorce if Zheng Guosheng did not agree, he finally relented. During this time, Zheng Hongxia repeated a year and successfully got into college. After the divorce, Wang Tsueme broke free from her shackles. With the consent of Su Tingqian and others, she resigned from the factory and started selling lunchboxes at construction sites. The price of the lunchboxes varied from 60 cents to 1 yuan, depending on the meat and vegetables. In 1984, the daily wage for construction workers in Yangcheng was about 7 to 8 yuan. They might hesitate to eat out, but spending 1 yuan on a lunchbox was still affordable. Wang Tsueme was skilled in cooking, and her dishes were tasty. She provided generous portions of rice and vegetables, so her lunchboxes sold exceptionally well. Though selling lunchboxes was not glamorous, she earned quite a bit. In her first month, Wang Tsueme made over 600 yuan. She was thrilled and worked even harder, waking up early and staying late. In just 2 years, Wang Tsueme saved enough money to open her own small restaurant. With this restaurant, she supported Zheng Hongxia and Zheng Hongfei through college and even bought her own house in Yangcheng. Years later, Wang Tsueme became an elderly woman, and her daily joy was spending time with her grandchildren. Her restaurant became a well-known establishment in the area, passed down to her younger son, Zheng Hongfei. Looking back, Wang Tsueme was most grateful for meeting Su Mo's family. She felt fortunate for her decision to divorce Zheng Guosheng. Otherwise, she would probably still be enduring his terrible temper, far from the comfortable life she now enjoys. In 1983, Hejiang Province began distributing land to households. That year, the Lu Family Village Brigade also divided the land, and the collective side businesses in the village were contracted to individuals. In October of the same year, the government issued a notice about separating government and society, establishing township governments. The Hongqi Commune was changed to the Hongqi Township Government in 1984, and the brigade was also disbanded. The Lu Family Village Brigade was renamed Lu Family Village, with brigade leader Lu Baogua becoming the village head and Lu Qing'an serving as the village secretary. However, Lu Qing'an resigned from his position before the new appointment was announced. Previously, he felt responsible as the village secretary and did not dare to leave the brigade. Now that the land was distributed to households and the side businesses were contracted out, the role of village officials was less significant. It didn't matter who held the position, and he felt he could finally let go of his responsibilities. Over the years, he often saw news about the reform and opening up in newspapers and broadcasts. Unfortunately, in the small place of the Hongqi Commune, the impact was minimal, and he had long wanted to see more of the world. Now that he had the chance to step down, he wanted to take advantage of his good health to travel and broaden his horizons. So, after the autumn harvest was finished and the grain was stored, Lu Qing'an asked his eldest and second sons to help look after things. He set off with Lu Boming and Li Wei, the three of them boarding a train heading south. In recent years, Li Wei had been helping Lu Xiaolan with the children and the shop in Tang City, only returning to Lu Family Village during the summer and winter breaks. This year, with Ding Lifeng starting preschool and the land divided among households, she stayed home to help, as Lu Qing'an couldn't manage the farming alone. Their first stop was Jing City. Last year, Lu Guodong and Lu Aiqin both got into university, with Lu Guodong attending a top-tier school and Lu Aiqin a second-tier one, both in Jing City. This year, Anan and Lele, at just 13 years old, were accepted into a youth program at a prestigious university. Anan entered a military academy known as the Tsinghua of the military, while Lele went to the youth program at Huqing University. On his first trip out, Lu Qing'an wanted to visit his grandchildren first, then see his daughter. Before leaving, he called Lu Xiaolan and Lu Chongzheng. Lu Chongzheng arranged for someone to buy sleeper tickets from Shuangshan City to Harbin for them. Upon arriving in Harbin, Ma Xiaojun and Tao Peixing came to pick them up, hosting them for a night before helping them buy plane tickets to Jing City the next day. Ma Xiaojun, being thoughtful, worried that the elderly might be scared of flying since they had never been on a plane, bought a ticket for herself and personally accompanied them to Jing City. Over the years, Ma Xiaojun had made a good income from the clothing business with Su Mo, accumulating assets worth several hundred thousand and opening 5 or 6 stores. She was deeply grateful to Su Mo. If Su Mo hadn't invited her to join the business, she would have likely ended up working in Qingxi County after graduation, struggling to make a living on a fixed salary rather than enjoying her current comfortable life. Last year, thanks to their efforts, Tao Peisheng was also transferred to a government position in Harbin, ending their long-distance living situation. With money, Ma Xiaojun had followed Su Mo's advice and invested in several properties in Harbin. Owning houses meant she didn't have to live with her in-laws. She even arranged a place for Aunt Zhao and hired a caretaker to look after her. The couple visited her every few days. With fewer conflicts, life became easier. Ma Xiaojun was very satisfied with her current life and took great care of Su Mo's family, who had guided her to this lifestyle. In Jing City, Lu Xiaolan and Ding Ziqing came to pick them up from the airport. Ding Ziqing borrowed a car from work to take the 4 of them directly to their home, a courtyard they had bought a couple of years ago. Ding Ziqing worked in Jing City and was quite busy, spending most of his time there. Housing was tight, and the unit provided him with only a single dormitory, which was a bit cramped for Lu Xiaolan and the others when they visited. Later, after making money from the clothing store, the couple decided to buy a courtyard in Jing City. The courtyard was about 300 square meters, with 8 rooms, more than enough for their family. Ma Xiaojun thought it looked great, and having followed Su Mo, she also had a preference for real estate, considering buying a similar place in Jing City. Xiaolan, your courtyard looks nice. How much did you buy it for? I bought this 2 years ago for 7,800 yuan, Lu Xiaolan replied. But prices have gone up. I bought a similar one a couple of months ago for 11,000 yuan, though the location isn't as good. Ma Xiaojun exclaimed, wow, prices are rising so fast. Why didn't you buy a couple more back then? Ma Xiaojun and Lu Xiaolan had been in the clothing business together, and Ma Xiaojun had made nearly 100,000 yuan in the past 2 years, thinking Lu Xiaolan had done similarly. Lu Xiaolan smiled shyly. I'm not as good at business as you, so I didn't earn much. Back then, the money was only enough for one. Lu Xiaolan and Ding Ziqing preferred their main jobs. Running a clothing store was more of a side business for them, so they didn't put much effort into it. They had been in the clothing business for 5 years and only had 2 stores. Moreover, Tang City was still recovering from a disaster, and its economy was not as strong as Harbin's, so their sales were naturally lower and they earned less than Ma Xiaojun. Are you thinking of buying Xiaojun? Lu Xiaolan asked. Yes, I think your courtyard is great, and I want to buy one too. That way, if I come to Jing City, I'll have a place to stay. This year, there are many more properties available. I heard from my sister-in-law that many people are selling their houses to go abroad. I'll take you to a real estate agency tomorrow. You can tell them what you need, and they will recommend suitable options. Starting in 1984, a wave of studying abroad and immigration began in the country. The next day, Lu Xiaolan first took Ma Xiaojun to the real estate agency, then brought the 3 elderly people to visit her grandchildren's schools. The first stop was Huqing University. Since Lele was the youngest and Huqing was the top school, they decided to go there first. In recent years, more and more people had come to China. To protect these outstanding students, Huqing placed great importance on campus security, and outsiders without proper documentation were not allowed in. When they arrived at the gate, the guard stopped them. Lu Qing'an quickly explained to the guard that they were there to see their grandson and mentioned Lele's name, stating he was in the youth program. The Huqing Youth Program had just been established this year, and the few students enrolled were already the center of attention at the school. Especially Lele, being the youngest, good-looking, and stylish, he clearly came from a well-off family and had a high talent for math and physics. In less than half a month at school, he had become quite popular. Upon hearing they were relatives of Lu Yanhe, the guard's attitude softened significantly. He asked them to wait at the gate while he notified someone. At that moment, Lele was working on a difficult problem when his life teacher informed him that his family was waiting at the gate. Thinking it was Su Mo coming to see him, he quickly abandoned the problem and ran excitedly to the gate. P.S. The Tsinghua University Youth Program was established in 1986. In this story, The timeline has been adjusted for the sake of the narrative. After Lele came out, he saw Lu Qing'an and the others. He was a bit surprised but very happy. Great-grandpa, grandpa, grandma, and little brother, what brings you here? Grandpa is no longer the party secretary. While he is still healthy, we decided to take a trip. Since we are in the capital, we came to see you, Lu Qing'an said cheerfully. They waited at the entrance for a while, and many students came in and out. Among them, Lele stood out as the most impressive. Yes, you should get out and explore. You can have fun in the capital for a while, and then we'll head to Yangqing. There are so many new things to see there, and the winter is mostly warm, making it suitable for the elderly. Okay, let's enjoy a few days in the capital first. And then we will go, Li Yue chimed in, gently patting Lele's head. Lele, are you getting used to studying in the capital? Is it hard? Do your classmates bully you? Li Yue felt a bit emotional. Time flies so fast. It seems like just yesterday they were born, and now they're already 13 years old, almost as tall as her, and in college. At home, Guoliang and Guiqiang, the two older brothers, are 4 or 5 years older than him and are still in high school. Meanwhile, he, the younger brother, is already in college. At such a young age, he has left home to study in another city. It must be tough for him. Lele smiled. I'm getting used to it. My classmates are really nice and take good care of me. It's also easy to call home. Mom and Dad often call me. I'm not struggling, but my sister has it harder. Their school has a 3-month closed training period, and they can't contact family, Lele said, feeling a bit sad and sympathetic. He and Enan have been together since childhood, and this is the first time they have been apart for such a long time. However, they chose different paths, one in the light and one in the dark. It seems they won't see each other often in the future, so he needs to adapt quickly. Can't Enan contact anyone? Grandpa was thinking of visiting her. Lele waved his hand. Grandpa, the military academy is strict and doesn't allow casual visits. When my sister gets a break, she will come home by herself. The grandfather and grandson chatted at the school gate for a while. Lu Qing'an, worried about disturbing Lele's studies, handed him the nutritional supplements they bought before and urged him to go back. Lele, we just came to see you. Now that we see you're doing well, we feel relieved. You should go back and not let it affect your studies. Take these and eat well. Don't neglect your health.
I don't have class for a while.
Great-grandpa, do you want to see inside the school? Lele asked, hoping to show them around since they rarely come out. Can we? Lu Qing'an's eyes lit up. He naturally wanted to go inside. I'll ask, Lele said, turning to find the security guard. After some negotiation, Lu Boming and the others registered their information and were allowed in. Lele guided Lu Boming and the others around the school, and at noon, he took them to the cafeteria for lunch before sending them out of the school gate. After visiting the prestigious school, everyone was in great spirits. In the afternoon, they also visited Lu Guodong and Lu Fengqin, bringing them plenty of nutritional supplements as well. Since it was the school term, Lu Xiaolan, who was teaching senior year, couldn't take too many days off. The next day, she took Ding Lifeng back to Tang City. Ding Ziqing took a few days off from work and took the 3 elders to Tiananmen, visited the Forbidden City, and climbed the Great Wall. Later, Lu Boming gathered with the 3 elderly officials he had helped in the past, treating them to several days of delicious food in the capital. After spending a few days in the capital, the 3 elders went to the place where Lu Xiaolan taught in Tang City for a few days before preparing to head to Yangqing. Last year, Su Mo resigned from her job to take over the family business and began to connect with talents in the tech field. Recently, she invested in a startup in Zhongwankan. Upon learning that the 3 elders were coming, Su Mo flew to the capital to pick them up and also met with the startup team to check on the product development progress. After finishing her work, Su Mo visited Lele before taking the 3 elders back to Yangqing. In October, the average temperature in Yangqing was still over 20 degrees. As soon as they got off the plane, the 3 elders felt like they had entered a completely different world. Su Tiqian and Lu Chongjing picked them up at the airport. After some pleasantries, they first returned to the military family compound to settle in. Then, Su Tiqian hosted a welcome dinner for the in-laws at Su Jing's restaurant. Su Jing's restaurant is located in a newly developed area. The journey there was filled with newly built skyscrapers, and the traffic was bustling. The small cars that were rare in Qingxi County were so numerous here that they almost caused traffic jams. Lu Boming and Lu Qing'an were both amazed. The reform and opening up have really been beneficial. At this rate, people will soon live the life of their dreams. When they arrived at the splendid restaurant and enjoyed the beautifully arranged dishes, their feelings of amazement deepened. This was a life that felt worlds apart from what they had experienced. If everyone in the country could live like this in the future, how wonderful it would be. After the meal, Su Tingqian patiently introduced the changes in Guangdong province since the reform and opening up to the three elders. Over the next few days, the father and daughter took the three elders on a tour of Yangcheng and showed them their factory and shops. The three elders were also restless. After a few days of sightseeing, they started helping out at Su's factory. Li Yue loved making clothes, so she became a worker at the clothing factory. Lu Boming and Lu Qing'an took on roles as salespeople at Su's new restaurant, busy every day. Having lived through tough times, the older generation was incredibly happy to see money coming in every day. Geng Chongqing, who was familiar with Lu Boming and Lu Qing'an, took the time to have a meal with them at the family compound. Seeing their former leader made them very happy, and they shared a lot about the changes in Hongqi Commune and Qingxi County over the years. Knowing that Geng Chongqing was the second in command in Guangdong province, they shared their impressions of Yangcheng and offered several candid suggestions. The three elders spent a winter in Yangcheng, and as spring approached, they expressed their desire to return to Lu family village. Su Mo and Lu Chongjing tried hard to persuade them to stay, but the three elders were reluctant to leave their land and insisted on going back, saying they would come again in winter. The couple had no choice but to let them go. In the eyes of the older generation, they could take some time to visit their children's places of development, but ultimately, they wanted to return home. Although their hometown was backward, it was the place that raised them. It was their root. In the first few days after the three elders returned to the village, the Lu family was crowded with people all day long, eager to hear about their experiences in Guangdong province. For the villagers of Lu family village, Guangdong was a legendary place. Visiting there felt almost like going abroad, a place only seen in news and newspapers. The villagers were curious, and the three elders shared their insights, especially emphasizing the economy of Guangdong. There were many tall buildings, cars everywhere, and many products not available in Qingxi County. The area was bustling with people, many of whom were from other places working in Guangdong to earn money. When the villagers heard that a regular female worker in a clothing factory could earn 200 to 300 yuan a month and construction workers even more, they were astonished. The land in Lu family village was good, and the farmers here earned relatively well. After land distribution, even the hardest working families only made about 1,000 yuan a year, which was less than the salary of an average worker in Guangdong for 3 to 4 months. Not to mention farmers, even workers here earned far less than those in Guangdong. Some villagers had relatives working in factories in the county and were aware of the general salary levels. Here, workers earned only about 70 yuan a month, and only those in leadership positions made a little over 100. In 1985, the average annual salary for workers nationwide was 1,148 yuan, with an average monthly salary of 96 yuan. Some quick-thinking villagers began to have ideas. Within a few days, several families approached Lu Qing'an, asking if their children could go to Guangdong to work and if he could help connect them with the Su family's factory. In recent years, Su Mo had done a lot of charity work in Qingxi County under the Su family name, and everyone in Lu family village knew that her family business was quite successful. Working in Guangdong was lucrative, so many people wanted to go. However, if they went without proper arrangements and couldn't find work, it would be a waste of travel expenses. Travel costs were one thing, but the worst fear was if something happened there and they ended up losing money and their lives. If the secretary's in-laws were willing to take in these workers, it would be much safer, and they wouldn't have to worry about their children's safety. Lu Qing'an didn't dare to agree immediately, but remembering what his in-laws had said about hiring more people this year, he called Su Mo. Having been the village secretary for many years, he felt a deep responsibility for the village's development. After spending a few months in Guangzhou, he realized how hard life was for farmers. Making money was very difficult. By the end of the year, relying solely on the little money earned from the land, plus raising a pig or two, it was really hard to live well. If young people could work outside for a few years and then return to start families, life would be much better. So, if he could help, he wanted to try. In the past 2 years, the pace of reform and opening up had accelerated, and the Su family's company was expanding quickly, constantly hiring for their clothing and construction businesses. Su Mo had thought about whether to recruit some people from Lu family village. But then she realized that actively recruiting people was different from those who wanted to come on their own, so she dropped the idea of actively seeking them out. However, she was willing to accept anyone from the village who wanted to work. After all, recruiting anyone was the same, but hiring people from her hometown would also look good in front of her fellow villagers. So, when she received Lu Qing'an's call, she readily agreed. Lu Qing'an, however, worried that Su Mo agreed so quickly just to please him, as this was the first time he had asked her for help. Xiao Mo, you don't need to feel any pressure. I'm no longer the village secretary and have no responsibilities to the villagers. Only recruit those you can actually use. Don't take anyone who might cause trouble.
Su Mo smiled. It's fine, Dad.
We need to hire people anyway, and since they're from the same village, we should help if we can. But you need to make it clear to them first. If they want to work in my factory, they can, but they must follow the company's rules. They shouldn't think they have any special privileges just because we are from the same village. Su Mo believed it was essential to set clear expectations to avoid any misunderstandings later. Also, those who come without experience will earn less than the older employees, but their pay will increase once they become skilled. Considering they are from the village, the factory can provide food and accommodation, but we will charge a small fee, around 20 yuan a month. In the clothing factory, apprentices will earn a basic salary of 60 yuan per month, and once they complete their training, their pay will be calculated based on a basic salary plus piecework bonuses. Experienced workers can earn around 150 yuan a month, and some fast workers can make 200 yuan. For construction workers, daily wages vary from 6 to 15 yuan depending on the type of work. Construction jobs pay more, but they require hard work and the work locations are not fixed. They go wherever there is work. Additionally, those who come must have an ID card. We won't accept anyone without one. Lu Qing'an noted everything Su Mo said. Xiao Mo, how many people do you think you'll need? Lu Qing'an asked. With such good conditions, the young men and women in the village would likely be eager to sign up. About 20 or 30 each, Dad. Please make sure to screen them. We don't want anyone lazy or troublesome. Okay, don't worry. I'll make sure to select the right candidates, Lu Qing'an promised seriously. After returning home, Lu Qing'an discussed this with Lu Boming. In the afternoon, he approached Lu Baogua and shared the news with the village, posting the conditions on a bulletin board. As Lu Qing'an expected, once villagers saw the announcement, everyone with young men and women who could work rushed to sign up. There were especially many young women. In rural areas, there is often a preference for boys, and families might hesitate to send their sons to do hard labor, but they had no such reservations about their daughters. With food and accommodation provided, and a monthly salary of over 100 yuan, who wouldn't want to go? Such benefits were usually reserved for leaders in Qingxi County. Lu Boming and Lu Qing'an first held a cultural assessment, similar to what the county factories did. They then screened the remaining candidates, rejecting those who were lazy, had difficult family members, or were troublemakers. After the selection process, they were left with about 10 men and 10 women, all honest and hardworking villagers. Sending the village's young people to work for the first time represented Lu family village's reputation, so they had to choose wisely to avoid leaving a bad impression on their in-laws. 2 days after Lu Qing'an made a phone call, Lu Guoping also called Su Mo. He was considering going to Yangqing for work and asked Su Mo if she could help arrange it. This time, Lu Qing'an was hiring only young men, and there were none in their 30s like him. Su Mo naturally agreed to Lu Guoping's request. Lu Guoping had a good relationship with Lu Chongjing, and he had helped Su Mo a lot when she was in Lu family village. Su Mo remembered all this and planned to help him when she had the means. A couple of years ago, Sumo had already told Lu Chongjing to let Lu Guoping know that if he wanted to work in Guangdong province to earn money, he could always reach out to her. However, at that time, Lu Guoping's mother was already in poor health, so he didn't think about going out to earn money. He just wanted to stay by her side and fulfill his filial duty. At the end of last year, his mother passed away. Now, seeing that people in the village were going to Guangdong province, Lu Guoping also felt inspired to go out for a few years and save some money. Lu Guoping's eldest son was a year older than Danin and Lulu, and he was now in middle school, doing well enough to likely get into high school. The two younger ones were already in elementary school, and with 3 kids in school, the expenses added up. If they all managed to get into college, it would cost a lot of money. Although the government covers tuition fees and provides meal subsidies for college students now, he heard from other families in the village with kids in college that the meal subsidies are not enough and families still need to contribute, or else the kids won't have enough to eat. Moreover, they also need to buy daily necessities and school supplies. Over a year, it would easily add up to a couple of hundred. He also heard that in a few years, the government might stop covering college tuition. The number of college students is increasing every year, and they are not as valuable as before. He needed to plan ahead while he was still young and able to work for a few years and save some money. If tuition is no longer covered in the future, he would still have money to support his 3 boys. Besides, even if his 3 boys don't go to college, getting married and starting families will also cost a lot. It wasn't just Lu Guoping who wanted to go to Guangdong province. Lu Xingjuan and Lu Weigua were also considering it. One day, while watching TV after dinner, Lu Xingjuan asked, "Dad, what do you think about us going to Yangqing to work?" Although Lu Xingjuan worked at the credit station, it was a low-paying rural job, earning only around 80 yuan, and Lu Yuji earned even less, only about 50 yuan. Together, their salaries didn't even match that of a regular female worker in a clothing factory in Guangdong province. Lu Weigua chimed in, "Yeah, Dad, if Sandy's family can arrange it, I'd like to go too." After the commune was disbanded last year, the timber factory that used to belong to it was in a difficult position, and with old machinery, its performance had declined. Recently, there were rumors that it might be sold to private owners. Lu Weigua had already risen to the position of deputy factory director, but if it were privatized, he and other factory staff would likely be among the first to be replaced. Even though he was a deputy director, his salary was just over 100, which was still less than working as a construction worker in Guangdong. Lu Qingyan glanced at them and said, "Those young men are going to work on construction sites. You've been used to a relaxed job for years. Are you sure you can handle it? That requires a lot of hard work." Guangdong province is also much hotter than here. In summer, it can reach 30 to 40 degrees, and the sun is intense. Working outside all day can really take a toll. Lu Xingjuan chuckled. He was over 40, and while he might manage a few days of hard work, he probably couldn't sustain it long term. There are other jobs, right? Or, we could sell buns like you and Grandpa. Previously, Lu Qingyan and Lu Boming helped sell things at Su's food shop, and Su Tingqian paid them a salary. With their base pay and commission, they could earn around 150 to 160 yuan a month. They had mentioned this when they came back home, and Lu Xingjuan was aware of it. "The bun shop has already hired people before we returned. Besides, we don't understand Cantonese, which would affect business," Lu Qingyan replied. "Plus, the cost of living in Yangqing is high. Don't be fooled by the 150 to 160 yuan a month. After deducting expenses for food, clothing, and housing, what's left might be less than what you save here." Lu Qingyan calculated the costs for them, rent, utilities, food, and other expenses, and found that they would actually save less than if they stayed in their hometown. At home, they didn't have to pay rent, grew their own food, and didn't spend much on water and firewood, with expenses mainly for electricity and occasional purchases of meat and daily necessities. "Your dad is right," Lu Boming added. "Although wages in Guangdong are higher, they are private jobs and not as stable. Since you have steady jobs, it's better to stick with them. The government now has a retirement policy, and when you reach retirement age, you'll receive a pension. If you feel the pay is low, you can always start a side business to supplement your income. Although Qingxi County can't compare to Guangdong, it has developed over the years. If you have ideas, you can still earn money without needing to go far away. If they had the ability, Lu Boming would be happy for them to venture out, as big cities have many good companies starting up. But his eldest and second grandsons had average abilities and were not very determined. They might do okay at home, but if they went to Yangcheng, they could easily be dazzled by the city's glamour and get into trouble. I think the second brother's wife is doing well. Over the years, their food business has been quite successful. You should think about it and see if you can start a side business or ask Xiao Emo for her advice. Lu Hohat was surprised to hear Lu Boming mention her and quickly said, yes, more people are willing to buy food outside these past 2 years, and business has improved a lot. Lu Hohat and her siblings had been running their food business for a few years, and last year they opened a shop in the county. Usually, Lu Hohat and her sister Lu Meihua managed the shop, while Lu Fubao continued to ride his bike around selling. In the past few years, business wasn't great, but each sibling could still earn around 60 to 70 yuan a month, which was not worse than a regular job. Since last year, business had picked up and now they could each earn over 100, with recent months reaching nearly 200. However, with a mother like Zhao Jiuxiang at home, the 3 siblings didn't dare to say how much they earned, only claiming they were barely making ends meet. Look around. You can find good opportunities at home too. We still have land. If you all go away, who will farm it? Lu Qing'an added. Their salaries were not high, but the work was easy and didn't interfere with farming. Lu Xingjuan and Lu Weiguo were only slightly interested before, but after hearing their father and grandfather, they felt it made sense and decided to drop the idea. Although their salaries were lower than outside, they were still decent at home. They could look into starting a side business to supplement their income, and since they still had land to farm, it wouldn't be much worse than working elsewhere. Lu Yuji wanted to go to the clothing factory, but seeing that Lu Xingjuan had given up on the idea, she didn't bring it up again. After selecting the candidates, Su Emo asked Ma Xiaowan to buy train tickets to Yangcheng for everyone. Tao Peisheng had relatives working in the railway bureau, making it easier to get tickets. In recent years, Guangdong province's economy has developed, especially in the clothing wholesale industry, which has grown significantly. Most provincial capitals now have direct train services to Guangdong. There are also direct trains from Harbin to Yangcheng, eliminating the need to transfer in Beijing. However, many people wanting to make money flock to Guangdong, making train tickets to Yangcheng very hard to come by. Due to the imperfect system, some people have started reselling tickets, making it even more difficult to find a ticket. Ordinary citizens wanting to go to Yangcheng either have to pay high prices for tickets from scalpers or wait in line for several days to buy tickets themselves. As a result, every day, a crowd of people with luggage waits at the ticket windows of the train station. If the people from Lujia village had to buy tickets on their own, it would take them at least 10 days to get through. So, Su Mo asked Ma Xiaowan for help to buy tickets for everyone, and they were sleeper tickets. As for the ticket costs, they had agreed in advance to deduct it from their wages later. On the day of departure, Lu Guoping led a group of young men and women, taking the village tractor to the county, then taking a bus to the city, and finally heading to the train station to take the train to Harbin. When they arrived in Harbin, it was already past 10 at night. Ma Xiaowan came to pick them up and took them to a guest house she had booked in advance. She knew everyone since she had previously worked as a youth in Lujia village, and some were even her former students. Since these people had never traveled far, Ma Xiaowan advised them on what to watch out for on the train. In recent years, pickpockets and scammers have increased on trains, and if one is not careful, they could easily be stolen from, especially young women who might be tricked into illegal activities. The next day, the group boarded the train heading south. As they passed by the crowd of people sleeping on the ground, waiting to buy train tickets, they realized how lucky they were to avoid the hassle and have sleeper tickets. Once on the train, Lu Guoping followed Ma Xiaojuan's advice and arranged for the young men to take turns watching over their belongings. When the young women needed to use the restroom, they went in pairs for safety. The selected group was honest and obedient, so everything went smoothly, and they arrived in Yangcheng a few days later, without any incidents. Sue Mo arranged for the HR department to pick them up and even organized a welcome dinner, which both she and Lu Chongjing attended. Since they were from the same village, and it was their first time out, they made sure to greet everyone and encourage them. After the welcome dinner, the HR representatives from various factories took the newcomers away. The young women went to the clothing factory, while the young men went to the construction company. The remaining arrangements were handled by the company, so Sue Mo didn't have to worry. However, Su Guoping was advised by Sue Mo to pay special attention to the construction company's HR and find a skilled and patient mentor for him. The next 20 to 30 years would be a golden period for real estate, and as long as Lu Guoping learned the trade well, he wouldn't have to worry about finding work. The HR department first took everyone to the dormitory to arrange their accommodations. In recent years, more and more employees from outside have come, and the companies and factories under the Su family have provided dormitories and canteens. The dormitories consist of large rooms with 8 beds, featuring bunk beds, private bathrooms, and small balconies for drying clothes. Since Yangcheng is hot, each dormitory is also equipped with ceiling fans. The living conditions are excellent, even better than many employees' homes, especially for those coming from rural areas. When the villagers from Lujia saw the bright and clean dormitory buildings, they were overjoyed. Compared to their mud brick homes, it felt like heaven and earth. When they called home to report their safety, they all praised the situation. After their families heard about this, those who were not selected became restless, frequently asking Lu Qing'an if there would be more job openings. Especially after the first group sent money back home, more people came to the Lu family. Lu Qing'an was quite annoyed and discussed with Sue Mo, stating they would not hire anyone for 6 months, which calmed things down a bit. He couldn't outright say they weren't hiring anymore, as people could see that some had already gone. If he completely shut it down, it wouldn't sit well with the villagers. Lu Qing'an now felt he might have created a troublesome situation. However, it wasn't long before people from other villages started bothering him. Many who knew Lu Qing'an brought gifts to his home, hoping he could help secure a spot for their children or relatives. Lu Qing'an was frustrated, feeling he was too involved in others' affairs. He worried about how others were doing, even though it was none of his business. He kept his concerns to himself and didn't mention it to Sue Mo, bearing the pressure alone since it was his issue. It was only when Sue Mo called home and Li Yue casually mentioned it during a chat that Sue Mo found out. Realizing this was not a good situation, Sue Mo thought that while the elders had good intentions, it shouldn't lead to trouble for everyone involved. Sue Mo reviewed her plans for the past few years, took a few days off, and returned to Lujia village. Now there were direct flights from Harbin to Yangcheng, making travel much easier. After returning, Sue Mo and Lu Qing'an met with the secretary and mayor of Hongqi Township and signed 2 agreements directly. One was a labor agreement and the other was a purchase agreement. The labor agreement stated that Sue's company would hire 100 workers from Hongqi Township each year for 5 consecutive years. The purchase agreement stated that Sue's company would buy medicinal herbs grown in Hongqi Township. This move provided job opportunities for young people in Hongqi Township, boosted the local economy, and resolved Lu Qing'an's current troubles. If anyone approached him again, he could easily say that hiring would be managed by the township government, and he wouldn't get involved. In recent years, with improved seed quality and the widespread use of fertilizers, grain yields have increased significantly, and the government has largely solved the issue of food security. Hongqi Township has fertile land, leading to even higher grain yields, but the purchase prices for grain have not increased much. Using all the land for grain cultivation has not been economically beneficial. Township leaders have also been considering allocating some land for other cash crops to increase residents' incomes, but they haven't found a particularly good solution. Now that Sue Mo has come forward, willing to provide seeds for medicinal herbs and promising to buy the harvested crops, the township leaders were very pleased. They praised Sue Mo for remembering her roots and giving back to her old community. In recent years, various policies have gradually relaxed, and the government has started allowing private pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical sector is also a significant area for future investment, and Sue's upcoming focus will be on this sector, making her move a step toward developing her medicinal herb base. Sumo's actions align with the national initiative of the rich helping the poor, which also benefits the government. If they achieve good results, the country could promote them as a model, and the Su family could gain both fame and fortune. Helping everyone means she can't ignore her own family. Although the first and second households have some minor issues, the major ones are not a problem, at least not in front of her. As long as they don't cause trouble, Su Mo is happy to help since they are family. However, Su Mo never considered sending them to Guangdong province. After all, they lack the skills, and if they went there, they would only do the same hard work as ordinary people, which seems unfair since they are her brother and sister-in-law. At first, they might not say anything, but over time, seeing others succeed while they remain the same could lead to feelings of discontent, which could harm family relationships. In a worst-case scenario, if their mindset isn't right, they might even help competing companies against hers, leading to significant losses. If it came to that, should she confront them or not? If she placed them in management positions, their skills wouldn't meet the requirements. The company is growing rapidly, and every management role is crucial. Any mistakes could affect the entire company's progress, and it would be difficult to discipline them without straining relationships. Another reason is that the 3 elderly people are at home, and someone needs to be there to look after them. So, the best solution is to keep them here and provide them with decent jobs, allowing them to be happy. As for financial support, she will help them when necessary. With her business doing well, she is willing to spend a little to maintain family harmony. Having made up her mind, Su Mo began to make arrangements. First, she approached the local government to discuss the acquisition of a timber factory. Due to their previous agreements, the local government had a good impression of Su Mo and quickly finalized the deal. The timber factory was established by Gung Chongqing and has good potential. Its recent decline in performance was due to the leadership not adapting to the reforms. After taking over, a few adjustments could restore its profitability. With more houses being built, the demand for construction timber and furniture will surge, leading to increased timber usage, with many areas becoming deforested. Acquiring a timber factory early on would greatly benefit Su's business. After securing the factory, Su Mo appointed Lu Weigua as the factory manager and doubled his salary. She provided him with a reform plan to follow and took him to sign several contracts with nearby timber farms. In the first few years, Su Mo didn't expect the factory to generate significant profits. She just wanted to stockpile timber for when prices rise in the future. Maintaining the status quo was within Lu Weigua's capabilities. Su Mo wouldn't leave him completely alone. She would regularly send assistants to inspect. Suddenly becoming a factory manager made Lu Weigua very happy, and he walked with a spring in his step for days. With Lu Weigua's situation settled, Su Mo then spoke with the county credit union leaders and transferred Lu Xingjuan from the township credit station to the county credit union, promoting him and significantly increasing his salary. Most importantly, it was a respectable position, as he would now be a formal bank employee. This made Lu Xingjuan very happy. The credit union was willing to help Su Mo because she had done a lot of charity work in Qingxi County over the years, and she promised that future payments for the timber factory and the medicine factory would go through their credit union. What does a bank want? Money. This large sum would be a significant achievement for them, so promoting one employee was an easy decision for the credit union leaders. With Lu Xingjuan's situation resolved, helping Lu Yuji at the supply and marketing cooperative was even easier. The director of the township cooperative was retiring, and Su Mo used her connections to promote Lu Yuji to that position. As for Lu Hohot, Su Mo also helped her and her siblings improve their small restaurant business, offering many suggestions. She even proposed a new way to earn money by selling daily necessities in the countryside instead of just in the county. Qingxi County is vast, and many villages are far from the commune, making shopping inconvenient. If someone brought goods to sell in the countryside, it would definitely be a profitable business. After discussing, the siblings decided to follow Su Mo's advice. However, biking to the countryside was inconvenient, so Su Mo helped them buy a motorcycle and connected them with wholesalers. With all these arrangements, everyone in the family was happy and felt grateful to Su Mo. Thanks to her efforts, the family stabilized, and in a few years, the farmers in Hongqi Township improved their living conditions, with every household starting to build brick houses. With Hongqi Township as an example, the leaders of Qingxi County approached Su Mo, hoping she could help other townships as well. After years of development, Su's pharmaceutical company was also on the right track, with high demand for various medicinal materials, especially ginseng and gastrodia, which thrive in cold regions. Seeing the demand, Su Mo readily agreed and quickly signed an agreement with Qingxi County, earning the title of Advanced Entrepreneur. Afterward, Su Mo donated money to help build roads and bridges in Qingxi County, effectively returning her ill-gotten gains to the community. Due to her series of charitable acts, when the farms and timber yards in Qingxi County were restructured, Su's family was able to buy several of them at a significant advantage, ensuring a stable supply of raw materials. Yang Suyin has been feeling exhausted and close to madness lately. The more she tries to align her life with the dream she had, the less she seems to accomplish. Life has been so unfair to her. If she is destined to live an ordinary life, then why did she have such a dream? Since she was given that dream, why not grant her a bit of luck to live like she did in it? Knowing that she could rise above others, but is stuck in a quagmire of unexpected challenges, is driving her nearly insane. Initially, after receiving money from Yang Suang, Yang Suyin rented a room near her school and transformed it into a small shop. In her dream, she started her journey by opening a restaurant and gained a lot of knowledge about food. Based on her dream, she experimented with a few dishes and hired a woman skilled in cooking to help her open the shop. Yang Suyin's small eatery sold popular snacks like chicken popcorn, fried chicken legs, fries, and grilled tofu, all of which were affordable and new to the area. The prices were reasonable, and since it was the first time people had seen such food, they were eager to try it, leading to good business. Having run a business in her dream for years, Yang Suyin had some marketing strategies. She implemented bundling sales and introduced a new item every month, attracting a loyal customer base, even drawing in visitors from other areas. Within 2 to 3 months, Yang Suyin repaid the 1,000 yuan she borrowed from Yang Suang. However, Yang Suang refused to take it back, saying it was his way of compensating her as an older brother. Yang Suyin felt justified in accepting it, considering how much money Yang Suang had spent on their family in the past. However, the good times didn't last long. The reason Yang Suyin's small eatery was making money was due to timing. At that time, people were hesitant about becoming self-employed. Once they realized the government was not cracking down, many started to open their own businesses. The snacks Yang Suyin sold required little skill, and anyone with decent cooking abilities could figure them out after a couple of tries. Soon, similar shops began to open nearby, diverting some of her customers. Fortunately, Yang Suyin's shop continued to introduce new items, allowing her to maintain her leading position for a while. While attending school, Yang Suyin entrusted most of the shop's operations to the employee she hired. This employee, a former housewife, was well aware of the costs of the ingredients and knew how profitable the business could be. However, within a year, that employee learned all the recipes for the unique snacks and told Yang Suyin she was leaving to open her own similar shop. Yang Suyin was furious and had to find someone new. The new hire's cooking didn't match the quality of the previous employee, impacting sales. Once the new staff became skilled and business picked up again, the landlord, seeing the shop's success, decided to take back the premises, saying they would no longer rent it. Yang Suyin was nearly driven to despair. Although she had signed a contract with the landlord, she had drafted it herself, and during that time, the law was not well established. The landlord could easily go back on their word, leaving her with no recourse. Even if she reported it to the police, they would only give the landlord a verbal warning and require them to pay her 100 yuan, which would be the end of it. At that time, Yang Suyin was nearing graduation. Fortunately, her small shop had earned her nearly 7,000 yuan over the past year. She thought that after graduation, she could use that money to start a bigger business, which lifted her spirits a bit. After graduating, Yang Suyin declined the job arranged by the government and, with her 7,000 yuan, sought a location on a busy commercial street to open another small eatery. Time was of the essence. She needed to earn 20,000 yuan quickly to establish her restaurant. Learning from her previous experience, she made sure to file her lease agreement with the relevant authorities. In addition to her previous offerings, she added hamburgers to the menu. Over the years, with the influx of foreign culture, young people had become increasingly eager to try new things. Though the taste might be average, many young customers were drawn in by the novelty, leading to good business. A year later, Yang Xiyun finally saved up 20,000 yuan. Just as she was preparing to open her restaurant and expand her ambitions, disaster struck with Yang Smong. At that time, the government was cracking down hard, and various factories were being audited. The issue of Director Zhong selling fabric was uncovered. Due to the large number of people involved, the factory decided to pursue criminal charges against several main offenders and confiscate their illegal gains. For those with lesser offenses, as long as they returned the illegal profits, the factory would show leniency and only give them a serious reprimand without sending them to court. Although Yang Suang was the son-in-law of Director Zhong, he was only involved in minor tasks like delivering goods and collecting payments, placing him in the category of minor offenders. As long as he returned the illegal profits, he could avoid prison. However, the money Yang Suang had received had mostly been squandered by Zhongya, leaving little behind to cover such a large debt. Zhou Qiuying also had little savings, and for the sake of her son's future, she had no choice but to turn to Yang Xiyun for help. Yang Xiyun was reluctant to assist, but Zhou Qiuying chose a busy time to kneel in front of her shop, forcing Yang Xiyun to grit her teeth and give her 1,000 yuan to help Yang Smong. After all, in business, if word got out that she ignored her mother kneeling at her shop's entrance, how could she ever enter higher social circles? Those people valued reputation, and she couldn't afford to have a stain on hers. This 1,000 yuan meant her restaurant plans were now on hold. She would have to wait until she had enough money again. However, before she could save enough, the location from her dream for the restaurant was already sold to someone else. To prevent any surprises, Yang Xiyun had actually rented the shop in advance, even willing to pay a few extra months' rent. Unfortunately, the owner encountered a wealthy buyer who preferred to sell the shop, even at the cost of paying a breach of contract fee. Yang Xiyun was furious, but felt powerless. The owner had compensated her according to the contract, and there was nothing she could do. With this unexpected turn, Yang Xiyun took the compensation from the owner and immediately found another shop a bit further down the same street, reluctantly opening her restaurant there. The name and decor were exactly as they were in her dream. However, in business, a slightly worse location could lead to significantly lower sales. After opening, Yang Xiyun's restaurant's performance was far from what it had been in her dream. Especially since the original location also opened a restaurant, most customers flocked there instead. Yang Xiyun was furious, taking out all her anger on Zhou Qiuying and Yang Smong, calling them to yell at them frequently. The owner was often angry, making the staff nervous, and business continued to decline. In the end, despite the significant investment, the restaurant earned less than a third of what her small eatery had made. Yang Xiyun was extremely anxious, especially after seeing the praise for the Su family in the newspaper, which broke her spirit even more. She kept recalling the details of her dream, and to avoid missing anything, she even took notes. Thinking of the man in her dream, who helped her a lot, hope rose in her heart. That's right, she still had support. That man was wealthy and capable. If he helped her even a little, her problems would be solved. According to the timeline in her dream, they were about to meet. With this thought, Yang Xiyun felt calmer and her temper improved a lot. She began to dress nicely every day and spoke gently to her employees. The boss no longer lost her temper easily, and the atmosphere in the restaurant became much more relaxed. Business gradually improved, although it was still not as good as the one on the street. It was not bad. Yang Xiyun strolled around the place where they were supposed to meet almost every day, waiting for several months, but she never saw that person. Gradually, she lost confidence. After all, many timelines in reality were quite different from those in her dream. She wasn't sure if that person had already come or if he hadn't come to Haisher at all. Not wanting to wait any longer, Yang Seon packed her bags and prepared to head south to find that person in Port City. After finally arriving in Port City, she followed the address from her memory, but before she got close, someone stopped her. Yang Seon dared to go to Port City because she was prepared. She immediately mentioned a few things that the man in her dream was interested in, asking them to pass the message. Sure enough, after relaying the message, Yang Seon met that man as she wished. He was just as gentle and polite as in her dream, and even invited her to dine at a top restaurant. However, just a few days later, he turned cold, saying, "You're wasting my time," and ignored her completely. Yang Seon was confused and wanted to clarify things. After several attempts to meet him, she was thrown out by his subordinates. The last time, she was even threatened with a gun, told that if she came again, she would be killed. Yang Seon was startled. That man was involved in crime in Port City, and he could really kill someone. She didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly returned to Haishur. After returning, Yang Seon carefully thought about where things went wrong. In her reflection, she discovered a problem. In her dream, when they met, her relationship with Gong Yi seemed to have improved. Later, her reconciliation with Gong Yi was also facilitated by that man. So, was it because her relationship with Gong Yi had collapsed? Did that man want to connect with the Gong family through her? Eager to find the answer, Yang Seon sought out the Gong family again. Upon visiting, she found out that the Gong family was also in trouble. The 3 generations of the Gong family had been arrested, and it seemed they were facing prison sentences. Yang Seon was completely stunned. In her dream, the Gong family was thriving. How could they have fallen? Could it be that her dream was just an illusion, a product of her desire to outshine Suemo? But if it was just her imagination, then what about that man? She had never known him before. How could she have imagined someone so clearly, knowing his appearance, name, and address? Yang Seon was puzzled and fell ill after returning. During her illness, she repeatedly had vivid dreams, even remembering details as if she had truly lived through them. Once she recovered, Yang Seon took a notebook and meticulously wrote down everything from her dreams, filling several notebooks, almost like a novel. After finishing, she read it over and over, feeling more and more that this was a life she had genuinely experienced, though she didn't know why it had changed. Yang Seon was determined. She had once made a fortune with the Su family's money, and now without it, she believed she could still succeed since she had already earned some starting capital. She was determined to build a successful career. However, she found that things were not going as smoothly as she had hoped. The business club that was easy to enter in her dreams was difficult to access in reality. No one was willing to recommend her despite her repeated visits. Without access to the business club, she lacked connections, and without connections, she couldn't get resources. Yang Seon shifted her focus, deciding to start small and build her business gradually, believing that she would have capital once she grew. However, as more people entered the business, her small snack shop and restaurant saw slow growth. After several years, she only opened 2 branches. Although it was better than nothing, it was still a small business, far from her expectations. Caught between reality and her dreams, Yang Seon's mental state gradually deteriorated. She became distracted and neglected her management, leading to a decline in her business, which was eventually forced to close due to competition. Years later, broke and desperate, Yang Seon submitted her recorded dreams as a novel to a publisher, hoping to earn some royalties. At that time, period novels were not popular, and the publisher set her manuscript aside. After several more years, the publisher upgraded, and some quality manuscripts were requested to be converted into electronic versions. An editor who reviewed Yang Seon's submission found it good and entered it into an electronic document, sending it to headquarters. However, during the electronic transmission, the email was mistakenly received by another studio in a parallel universe. At that time, period novels were in vogue there. The studio's editor, after reading the submission, immediately accepted it and published it on a well-known novel website, later even releasing a print version. Years later, during a crisis in the parallel world, someone traded this novel for a cabbage with the king of survival, Su Imo Gung Chongqing had a dream. In the dream, after spending half a month in the countryside, Xiao Imo unexpectedly drowned. When he received the news in the dream, he was heartbroken. At that time, the Su family was going through a tough period. To avoid affecting De Ge and Qiange, he hid Xiao Mo's death. He found a beautiful spot in Hongqi commune and buried her with great sorrow. After the funeral, he fell seriously ill. Once he recovered, he worked harder than ever, neglecting sleep and food, not allowing himself a moment of rest. Everyone praised him, seeing him as a diligent and dedicated official. The higher-ups recognized him as a model worker, and with the help of former leaders, he was promoted quickly. However, only he knew that his relentless efforts were driven not only by responsibility, but also by a deep emptiness in his heart. Every time he thought of her, it hurt unbearably. He dared not stop, fearing that endless longing and regret would consume him. In the dream, Qianji's situation seemed very difficult. Even with his promotions and power, it took him and De Ge 3 years to rescue Qiange from the cattle shed, during which De Ge almost lost his position. When Qiange and the others were finally vindicated and returned to the city, he finally dared to mention Xiao Imo. Everyone was deeply saddened, and Qiange and his wife were so devastated that they fell ill and passed away within a few years. As for him, after years of overwork and plotting revenge against those who harmed the Su family, coupled with the heartbreak over Xiao Mo, he burned out and passed away before reaching 40. Gung Chongqing suddenly woke up from the dream, clutching his aching heart, momentarily unable to distinguish between dream and reality. Once he was fully awake, he found it amusing how he had such a strange dream. Xiao Mo was alive and well, not only successful in her career, but also happy in her family. The only downside was that her husband and child were in the army, carrying out dangerous missions, which often left her worried. The Su family was not as weak as in the dream. They were on the rise again, regaining their former glory. Gung Chongqing smiled. Since he was awake, he decided not to go back to sleep and went to his study to look over some documents. As he read, he couldn't help but think of that dream. In the dream, he regretted not visiting Xiao Imo sooner to take care of everything for her. If only she hadn't fallen ill and drowned. But what about in reality? Did he regret it? If he had taken care of Xiao Imo earlier, she wouldn't have gotten sick or drowned, and she wouldn't have been saved by Lu Chongzheng, which meant she wouldn't have married him. Did that mean he and Xiao Imo could have been together? Gung Chongqing smiled bitterly. It was probably impossible. When he saw Xiao Imo again in Lu's village, her gaze towards him was no longer the same as before. She had likely moved on from her youthful infatuation and now regarded him with the respect of a younger person towards an elder. Moreover, he was still a coward, afraid to face his own feelings. Even if she hadn't changed, he wouldn't dare to acknowledge it. He feared others would say he was ungrateful, that Uncle Zhongli saved him and raised him as his own, yet he tried to pursue his granddaughter. He also feared people would say he disregarded family ties, that the Su family treated him like family, yet he fell for a niece so much younger than him. He dreaded the disappointment or even disgust in De Ge and Qianji's eyes. Most of all, he was afraid that Xiao Mo's feelings for him were just a fleeting infatuation, and if she left him after realizing it, he would lose not only his love but also his family. So, when the young girl, filled with sincere passion, wanted to confess to him, he cowardly ran away. Everyone said Gung Chongqing was talented and visionary, a natural leader. But in truth, he was just a coward. Indeed, a weak person like him didn't deserve her genuine affection. Fortunately, he had run away back then, allowing everyone to live harmoniously like family. Thus, he should fulfill his role as an uncle, supporting her quietly as a family member when she needed help. That would be enough. Life continued as usual. The dream and deep thoughts felt like a drop in the ocean, leaving no ripple in the flow of time. Gung Chongqing planned to uphold his identity as an uncle, hiding his feelings from everyone. But fate played a joke on him, or perhaps gave him a surprising twist. The events unfolded so suddenly that no one expected explosives had been planted in such a place. At the moment of danger, Gung Chongqing instinctively shielded Su Mo, absorbing most of the explosion's shockwave. When the terrifying blast subsided, Gung Chongqing felt intense pain in his insides. Just as he wanted to speak, a metallic-tasting liquid surged from his mouth. His instincts told him his life was slipping away quickly. At that moment, the person he had protected also got up. Upon seeing him, her eyes filled with deep sorrow, and disbelief crossed her face. Her beautiful eyes quickly filled with tears, which fell freely. Gung Chongqing wanted to raise his hand to wipe her tears, but despite his efforts, he could only move slightly. He managed to say, "Shao."
Mo, it's
Okay, don't
cry.
Gung Chongqing knew he wouldn't survive. The shackles in his heart fell away, and suppressed emotions surged forth as he greedily gazed at the person before him. Sensing his different gaze, the young girl cried even harder. Gung Chongqing felt anxious and wanted to comfort her, but the liquid in his mouth surged more violently, and he could barely see her clearly. "Don't speak, you won't be hurt."
Hold on.
The young girl cried as she leaned closer to him, her hands seemingly resting on him. He felt the intense pain in his body ease for a moment. However, warm liquid dripped on his face, and he couldn't tell if it was her tears. Everything was a blur of red and black.
Shao Mo,
If I hadn't left back then.
how good it would be.
Gung Chongqing used all his strength to express his regret for the first time. The young girl didn't respond, but her tears seemed to flow even more.
Don't cry. I'm sorry.
"I don't deserve you." It felt like an eternity, and just as he was sinking into darkness, he heard the young girl softly reply. She said, "Uncle Gung, I'm not her. Your little girl has never let you go." Never let go? How wonderful! But also, how sad. He had never expressed equal affection in front of her. After all these years, how much sadness must his little girl have felt? But unfortunately, he no longer had time. Gung Chongqing woke up in a hospital that looked a bit strange. It seemed old, yet the equipment appeared advanced, resembling a cryogenic chamber from a foreign sci-fi movie. As soon as Gung Chongqing sat up, several people entered the room. Seeing him awake, they cried and laughed, shouting, "Captain, you're finally awake. You scared us to death." Gung Chongqing was confused and wanted to speak. When he raised his hand, he suddenly realized it wasn't his hand. It looked younger, with more defined joints, and seemed stronger. Suppressing his shock, Gung Chongqing quickly dismissed the people and found a place with a mirror to examine himself. The person in the mirror resembled him from his youth, but was definitely not him. Moreover, the environment around him felt eerie. Though he had been taught not to believe in strange things, as someone raised under the red flag, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered something supernatural. Having navigated the political world for many years, Gung Chongqing quickly grasped the situation. He seemed to have arrived in a slightly different timeline, many years into the future, inhabiting the body of a young man named Gung Qing. It appeared that a virus had erupted here, turning many into flesh-eating monsters called zombies, while some surviving humans had gained superpowers known as abilities. The Gung Qing he inhabited had a powerful metal ability and was the captain of an ability team. He was injured while rescuing someone during an operation to support a neighboring base on the brink of collapse. According to his teammates, he had brought the person back just as he was about to lose consciousness. The team's healer treated him for several days and then placed him in a healing chamber for a week before he finally woke up. Once he understood the situation, he wanted to see the person he had rescued, sensing that she might hold the key to everything. However, his teammates informed him that she had yet to wake up. They didn't know her, so they couldn't provide her with a crystal core for treatment. They only allowed the healer to give her basic care before sending her to a regular hospital room. Guided by his teammates, Gung Chongqing went to that hospital room. When he saw her, he was genuinely shocked. The girl looked remarkably similar to Shao Mo, though she appeared thinner and had a slightly yellowish complexion, unlike Shao Mo's fair skin. Gung Chongqing brought her back to the team and had the healer treat her, feeling that she might have the answers he sought. He stayed by her side for several days, and finally, one evening, she woke up. When she opened her eyes, she looked around in confusion. Upon seeing Gung Chongqing, she paused for that night. In the deep mountains and forests, several men were traveling under the moonlight. The men carried backpacks and appeared to be in a hurry, but they were actually very cautious. The leading man had sharp eyes, scanning the area ahead, fearful of hidden enemies or traps. The man at the back occasionally cleared their tracks, worried about being followed. While they focused on their feet, they didn't notice a pair of cold eyes watching them from a large tree nearby. Lu Heian was undergoing forest survival training. After several days of travel, they arrived here and decided to rest for a few hours, climbing a tree for safety. In such dense forests, the ground was full of mosquitoes and poisonous insects, so being in a tree felt safer. However, just as they were about to rest, they encountered this group of men. Lu Heian cursed her bad luck. It seemed she wouldn't be able to rest tonight. The moonlight was bright, allowing Lu Heian to see clearly from the tree, especially since she had special abilities that enhanced her vision. The men looked fierce and were clearly not good people. Remembering her father's warning before she left, Lu Heian suspected they were likely escaped drug dealers. She noticed their backpacks were bulging, which didn't seem like they were fleeing but rather transporting supplies. Since she stumbled upon them, she decided not to let them go. After they passed, Lu Heian quietly climbed down from the tree and followed them. She wanted to see where they were headed, hoping to discover another drug den. In recent years, the economy in the country had developed rapidly, leading to a rise in criminal activities. Although the government had increased police forces, there were still areas that were neglected. Some small border towns had become havens for criminals by the time the problems were recognized. These places had become lawless lands. People there didn't register for household accounts or ID cards, ignored family planning policies, farmed without paying taxes, and bought cars without licenses. Every household hoarded weapons and dealt drugs. Theft, robbery, and murder were common occurrences. Even military trucks passing through to deliver supplies and arms were targeted for robbery, and when the military sent personnel to demand payment, the criminals arrogantly insisted the military pay them off. Recently, a small town on the border was raided by the military in cooperation with local police. The incident began when a military convoy was stopped by these criminals demanding a toll to pass through. At that time, the military was engaged in a conflict with a neighboring country, and to avoid disrupting the front lines, the logistics officer had no choice but to pay them 20,000 yuan to let the convoy through. When Commander Su learned of this, he was furious and scolded the criminals. It was ridiculous for the military to bow to criminals on their own soil while claiming to protect the country. However, domestic security was primarily the police's responsibility, and he couldn't intervene directly. He could only pressure local police to eliminate that drug den quickly. The local police were also in a difficult position. They knew they needed to take action, but their limited resources faced overwhelming criminal activity. Over the years, they had lost many comrades, not much fewer than those on the front lines. For example, in that small town with thousands of residents, most were criminals, and the weapons hidden there could likely arm a battalion. They didn't dare send people there. Every attempt resulted in casualties. The town government was likely compromised, possibly even participating in criminal activities. Given the situation, it was uncertain who would take down whom if they went in. Ultimately, local police leaders sought help from the military, requesting assistance to combat the criminals. The military sent a battalion, and several hundred armed police collaborated with local authorities, using heavy weapons like rocket launchers and armored vehicles. After several days, they managed to capture and eliminate most of the criminals in that small town. However, many had escaped. Before Lu Heian set out, her father, Lu Chongzheng, had warned her to be careful, as she might encounter fleeing drug dealers. Lu Heian followed them for most of the night until they finally stopped in a valley and made a few bird calls. Lu Heian guessed they had reached their destination and quickly hid more securely. Sure enough, shortly after, a few bird calls echoed from nearby, and the men responded. Then, 2 armed men emerged from the bushes, spoke a few words to the group, and let them pass. Liu Heian frowned and quietly retreated, planning to sneak around to see how many people were there and how many guards were posted. After rigorous training and being an ability user, Liu Heian had skills far beyond those men. In just a few hours, she figured out the situation. Behind the valley, there was a small village with about a dozen wooden and mud houses, housing around 50 to 60 people. Surrounding the village were a total of 18 armed guards, some equipped with sniper rifles and machine guns. Anyone approaching the village without sufficient skills would likely not escape the guards' notice. It seemed to be a stronghold for a major drug lord. After assessing the situation, Liu Heian returned to a safe area and used her satellite phone to contact her father, reporting what she had found and providing the approximate coordinates. After reminding his daughter to stay safe, Liu Changzheng reported the situation to Commander Su. Upon receiving the information, Commander Su directly called the leaders of the police department. The rampant criminal activities were a thorn in the side of the border, and he wanted to discuss with the police about taking down the more powerful factions with military assistance. The last time many escaped, it was clear someone had leaked information, indicating corruption within the police system. If they sent the police again, they might escape once more. Criminals had no bottom line and could retaliate against the military if they discovered they were being pursued. In the past, the police chief would have disagreed, as fighting crime was their responsibility. However, recently, there had been too many incidents, and the central government was furious about the audacity of openly robbing military supplies, ordering them to eliminate these lawless areas promptly. They were already overwhelmed, so military assistance in capturing the fleeing criminals was a welcome offer. The police chief readily agreed, expressing gratitude. He instructed them to capture as many as possible and to eliminate those they couldn't. He didn't even mention the possibility of capturing live suspects for trial. There were so many criminals that there were plenty to interrogate. The crimes committed warranted execution many times over, and the military's help should not lead to unnecessary sacrifices. After receiving a positive response, Commander Su thought for a moment and called Liu Changzheng, asking him to send 2 teams to eliminate that village. The enemy was in a mountainous area, had the advantage of terrain, and was well armed. Sending regular troops would clearly be inappropriate. If too few were sent, they wouldn't stand a chance. If too many were sent, it would alert the enemy. It was better to send special forces. They had strong individual combat skills, excelled in teamwork, and had undergone rigorous jungle warfare training. At the same time, it would show those troublemakers the consequences of provoking the nation's armed forces. Liu Changzheng issued the order, and soon 2 small teams were formed. They took helicopters and flew to a location a certain distance from the coordinates, then descended into the jungle. This location was not chosen randomly, it was based on the route provided by informants. Once the 2 teams landed, they spread out to search for the marks left by Liu and Yan. After 2 hours, one group found the markers and quickly notified the others. When everyone gathered, the team leader was surprised to see Liu and Yan.
Snow Fox, is that you?
He had thought they were from the police. Training just happened to run into you, Liu and Yan replied. The team leader chuckled. Well, you have good luck. Liu and Yan didn't comment and asked, what did the higher-ups say? Eliminate the resistors on the spot. No capture mission? This needed clarification. They didn't want to accidentally kill an important target and face consequences.
No.
The higher-ups said to show them some power, to intimidate them. They shouldn't think they can do whatever they want. Liu and Yan nodded. That made things easier. It was indeed necessary to act decisively in chaotic times. In this area, the situation was no different from a war zone. When dealing with such heinous individuals, there was no room for humanitarian concerns. Without some intimidation, they would only become more rampant. Liu and Yan informed them of the specific locations of 18th century posts and worked together to develop a combat strategy. Then, the group hid in place to rest and gather their strength, planning to act just before dawn. Although nighttime operations were easier in the mountains, it also made it easier for criminals to escape. To avoid letting any escape, they decided to take the risk and act early in the morning. In the latter half of the night, the group split into 18 teams to deal with the sentry posts. After eliminating the sniper, Lu and Yen took his position. Her marksmanship was excellent, and from this vantage point, she could see the entire village, providing cover and eliminating any fleeing enemies. At dawn, the two teams of special forces began to infiltrate the village and eliminate targets. Soon, gunfire erupted below. It seemed some criminals had noticed. After the first shot, gunfire quickly intensified. From her sniper position, Lu and Yen kept a close watch on the situation below, taking down anyone attempting to ambush, use heavy firepower, or escape. One of the newer members even asked his team leader who Lu and Yen was, as her shooting was astonishingly accurate and fast. Those unaware might think she was shooting at close range. Caught off guard, the criminals were quickly taken down, with over half eliminated in no time. The remaining ones could only hide and resist stubbornly. With no concerns and no hostages, for the highly skilled and battle-hardened special forces, this battle was almost a foregone conclusion. Victory was just a matter of time. In less than an hour, the last criminal in the village was also shot down. As he fell, his eyes widened in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe he had been killed so easily. After all, he thought that as a significant leader, he had value. If he surrendered, the government wouldn't kill him, just take him in for questioning. As long as he was alive, he believed he had many ways to escape. He never expected that this time, the rules would be so disregarded. He was ready to throw down his weapon when the opposing side shot him dead. After searching the village and confirming there were no oversights, they reported the situation back to their team. The team instructed them to withdraw to 10 miles outside the village and wait for a helicopter to pick them up. They also called the police to send people to collect evidence and retrieve the bodies. At that time, special forces were still quite mysterious. It was not easy for the country to train a special soldier. They usually withdrew after completing their mission and rarely interacted with local units. When the local police arrived based on the information provided, they were stunned by the scene. There were not many signs of battle. Most criminals had been shot down with a single bullet. While counting, they also found many heavy weapons in the village, with several criminals lying next to them, unable to use them in time. Moreover, looking at their bodies, the time of death was not far apart. What kind of team could eliminate this group of people in such a short time without using heavy firepower? Such speed, such marksmanship, such combat power was terrifying and enviable. If their police system had such a team, they wouldn't have to worry about dealing with criminals. After these officers returned, they shared the story with their colleagues, and it spread within the police system, eventually reaching the ears of various crime leaders. Upon hearing the news, those criminals broke out in a cold sweat and quickly ordered their subordinates not to touch military matters again. They did not want to become the next targets. Ultimately, they had been too complacent in recent years. The nation's armed forces were not something they could provoke. In recent years, with the reforms and the influx of foreign ideas, so-called humanitarianism had become prevalent. Police officers faced many challenges in law enforcement, and many criminals took advantage of this to retaliate against the police. During those years, the police faced various new issues, and with insufficient manpower, their enforcement was indeed quite frustrating, giving criminals the illusion of weakness in armed forces. The eliminated leader was relatively powerful in the drug trafficking circle, with many subordinates and weapons, which made him so arrogant that he dared to provoke the military. Other criminals watched, thinking that if this worked, they might be able to carve out their own territory in the future. The result, however, was a cold splash of water. Provoking the military led to the destruction of their stronghold, and even their hidden lair was wiped out. Many drug dens began to rein in their arrogant behavior, starting to restrain their subordinates and no longer daring to rob or kill easily. It can be said that the military's decisive action had a very good deterrent effect. After saying goodbye to the Special Forces team, Lu Heian continued their jungle training. To reach their destination on time, Lu Heian only rested 2 to 3 hours each day, spending the rest of the time traveling. Finally, on the last afternoon, they arrived. Just as they sat down to rest, they heard chattering sounds from the path. Looking up, they saw a monkey coming around the corner, walking while occasionally glancing back and chattering, bending over in a way that resembled a human bowing to a distinguished guest. Then, two monkeys holding banana leaves appeared, one on each side. Along with them was a handsome young man walking in the shadow of the leaves, followed by another monkey fanning him with a palm leaf. The young man strolled over casually, moving gracefully, looking as if he was on vacation. Of course, it would have been better if he wasn't surrounded by monkeys. Seeing this, Lu Heian felt a headache. Her annoying little brother was showing off. If this were the cultivation world, he would probably be slapped to death. "Hey, sister, why do you look so disheveled?" Lu Yenha said in surprise as he approached. Compared to Lu Yenha's clean and fresh appearance, Lu Heian looked quite messy. Her clothes were dirty and torn in several places, her hair was full of grass clippings, and her face was smudged with dirt. Ignoring him, Lu Heian found a cleaner spot to lie down. "Call the higher-ups and tell them we've arrived." Chasing criminals had delayed her for 2 days, and she was exhausted from the journey. She needed to rest and regain her strength. Lu Yenha used a satellite phone to inform their superiors, then instructed one of the monkeys to lay the banana leaves on the ground. Once he sat down, the other 2 monkeys stood by to fan him and provide shade. Lu Heian was speechless. "Enough already, be a little low-key. Be careful, or someone might see you and think you're a monster. Don't worry, I have lookouts all around. If anyone comes, the lookout birds will notify me," Lu Yenha replied, moving the banana leaf-holding monkey to help shade his sister from the sun. Lu Heian was at a loss for words. She wondered who he took after to be so vain. He was better when he was younger, but during his years studying in the capital, his vanity had increased significantly. "Sis, why did you arrive so late?" Usually, during this kind of training, Anin was always faster than him. Today, he had waited for several hours for her. "I ran into some criminals on the way and helped out. Didn't you encounter any?" Lu Yenha turned his head, feeling a bit guilty. "No, I didn't." To make things easier, Lu Yenha had controlled several animals to help him along the way, which couldn't be seen by others. So, whenever the birds scouting ahead spotted someone, he would take a detour. The siblings chatted casually, and half an hour later, an eagle flew over, circling down and landing in front of them, calling out a few times. After listening, Lu Yenha quickly dismissed the monkeys, and the eagle flew away. Before long, the sound of a helicopter filled the sky. Lu Yenha quickly fired a signal flare. Soon, the helicopter arrived above them, lowered to a certain height, and dropped a rope ladder. The siblings climbed up immediately. After picking them up, the helicopter quickly turned around and took them to a secret training base, where they would undergo their next training. The siblings were doing this training to prepare for a place they would attend in 3 months. This place was very mysterious. It admitted students irregularly. Anyone who passed its entrance test could study there, regardless of their background or identity, and they didn't have to pay tuition. However, before students could study there, they had to sign a life and death agreement. The training there was considered hellish, and the students came from all walks of life, gangsters and law enforcement alike, including soldiers and criminals. Naturally, when people who were naturally opposed to each other gathered, there were frequent conflicts and deaths due to the limited number of graduation spots. However, anyone who graduated from there became a powerful figure in their field. So, even though the death rate was extremely high, people from all over the world still flocked to study there. Although the domestic special forces had been established for some time, they were still far behind the special forces of developed countries. In terms of military technology, there was still a long way to go. These advanced technologies were closely guarded by developed nations, who would never allow potentially threatening countries to learn them. The fastest way to understand these advancements was to study there. All the world's most advanced resources were freely available to the students. Having been trained by the organization for many years, the country needed them, and the siblings naturally stepped up. 3 months later, the 2 children went to take the entrance exam as scheduled. Lu Changjing and Su Imo felt very mixed emotions. On one hand, they hoped the children would pass the exam, go there for further studies, graduate smoothly, and return with what the country needs. On the other hand, they didn't want them to succeed, as going there could be extremely dangerous, and they might not come back. Reports indicated that in the year with the highest death rate, 20 people entered, but only 2 graduated. Of the remaining 18, 1 became a vegetable, while the other 17 disappeared without a trace. It was a place where success was the only option, with no chance for failure. 10 days later, news came that the 2 children had successfully passed the exam. From that day on, Liu Chongjing and Su Imo were on edge, fearing both good and bad news. The fact that the children were going to that place was a top secret, known only to Commander Su and a few others at the same level, along with Liu Chongjing and Su Imo. Therefore, the Su and Liu families believed the children were just going abroad for studies. Su Tingda and Su Yichen could guess some details, but as it was a military secret, they naturally kept quiet. As days went by, after having several nightmares about the children getting seriously injured, even Su Imo, who didn't believe in ghosts or gods, spent a lot of money to find a master and set up a statue of a Buddha at home, lighting incense every morning, hoping for her children's safe return. Even Liu Chongjing, a staunch materialist, started to join Su Imo in lighting incense every morning. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye, and finally, news arrived that the children had graduated successfully and would return home soon. When the couple received the news, they almost burst into tears, finally able to relax after such a long period of worry. At that time, the Gulf War had just ended. This war, involving 660,000 troops from the US and 860,000 from Iraq, began under the world's watch and ended in a shocking manner. In just 42 days, the US completely defeated Iraq, with Iraq suffering nearly 100,000 casualties, while the US lost just over 100 soldiers and had around 400 wounded. This overwhelming victory shocked the world and showcased a new way of warfare. It made countries realize that with the development of modern high technology, the nature of war had fundamentally changed. In this war, the US military first deployed a large number of high-tech weapons in actual combat, maximizing the power of electronic and information warfare, demonstrating overwhelming advantages in air and electromagnetic control. Under the crushing technological might of the US, Iraq's armed forces suffered devastating blows. From then on, information warfare and electronic warfare began to be frequently mentioned by military forces worldwide. At the start of the Gulf War, some military experts in the country boldly predicted that it might turn into guerrilla warfare or even street fighting, fearing the US could become mired in conflict. As the war progressed, especially after news of Iraq's surrender, various media outlets in the country fell silent. Although the economy had lagged in recent years, both the public and military personnel remained confident in their military strength. After all, from the Korean War to the Vietnam War, they had never lost. Before this battle, China was always considered one of the most formidable military powers in the world. In contrast to the public silence, military leaders were deeply worried. They had never seen a war like this, as the nature of warfare had completely changed. In most leaders' minds, war should involve mechanized infantry, encirclement, and at most, air support for bombing, working with ground forces to occupy key positions and eliminate the enemy's fighting spirit. However, that scenario never happened. The US relied on information warfare to completely understand Iraq's command centers, radar systems, network hubs, and power stations at the start of the conflict. They then used electronic warfare to blind and deafen Iraq, crippling their command systems, and subsequently bombed radar stations, air defense bases, ammunition depots, and even logistics warehouses to pieces. By this point, Iraq had not even seen a shadow of US troops, and their morale collapsed. Once the air defense systems and power stations were destroyed, the US launched large-scale airstrikes, systematically bombing Iraq's ground tanks and forces. They even used laser-guided precision bombs, which could accurately destroy ground armored units and hiding forces from over 10,000 meters high with just 1 or 2 bombs. This was completely different from the carpet bombing they were familiar with. Traditional carpet bombing involved bombers carrying tons of bombs, which were easy to spot and evade on the ground, making them vulnerable to missiles. In contrast, the U.S. directly used fighter jets to drop precision-guided bombs from high altitudes. Iraq's aircraft attempted to take off to stop them, but their positions and flight paths were exposed early due to the U.S. early warning systems, leading many to be shot down by U.S. missiles, with some even being downed by their own air defense missiles. After this round of bombing, Iraq was utterly defeated. They barely saw the enemy, and their fighting forces were nearly wiped out, leaving them with no choice but to surrender. Military leaders reviewed the battle repeatedly and organized numerous weapon simulations, realizing that this mode of warfare was nearly unsolvable unless they completely abandoned modern technology. But without modern facilities, they would lack the capability to fight against others. They couldn't simply rely on manpower to counter enemy aircraft and artillery. Years of confidence built on the blood and sweat of their ancestors had vanished. They fully realized that, in the face of modern warfare, the current military system was inadequate, and significant reforms were needed in military strategy, tactics, and force structure. Otherwise, Iraq's fate could become their own tomorrow. Liu Heian and Liu Yanhe returned home under such circumstances. As soon as they arrived, they were taken to meet important leaders. The siblings not only improved their individual combat skills there, but also learned about many high-tech weapons that were not available domestically and gained insights into advanced combat concepts. They had studied the high-tech weapons used in the Gulf War and were well aware of their functions. When they met the leaders, they explained everything based on their understanding. After a thorough understanding, the leaders felt a deep sense of urgency to address this gap. From that day on, the entire military would undergo informatization and electrification, with each army group establishing dedicated teams for information warfare and electronic warfare. It's easy to say, but hard to do. These items are core secrets, and even if you offer a lot of money, other countries may not sell them to you. Moreover, after entering the 1990s, Country M started a new round of blockades against us, making it even less likely for them to sell to us. If we can't buy them, we have to develop them ourselves. But these are technologies that can't be developed overnight, and the experts in related fields wish they could work twice as fast. Given this situation, the two siblings who understood the matter were naturally given important tasks. One was assigned to train the top talents selected from various military districts, while the other was sent to a research team to participate in the development of related weapons and equipment. After reporting to their superiors, the siblings were given 3 days off to visit their families. When the two children returned, everyone was very happy. The Liu and Su families gathered together to welcome them home and celebrate their successful studies. After Uncle Liu Ming passed away 2 years ago, Liu Qing'an and Li Yue no longer stayed in their hometown. Following the advice of the younger generation, they rented out their land to others in the village and rotated their time between Yangcheng, Jing City, and Liu Family Village. From time to time, Su and Mo would spend money to send them on trips, making their lives enjoyable. When Liu Xiaolan heard that the two children were back, she and her family flew over. She had transferred to a school in Jing City a few years ago, and now her family had settled there. Liu Guodong and Liu Aiqing graduated from university and joined the Su family's group, and they are now also in Guangdong province. The second family's youngest son, Liu Guoliang, got into university and is currently in his 4th year, interning at the Su family's company. Since 1987, the country has stopped assigning jobs to university graduates, so Liu Guoliang, attending a rather average university, must find a job on his own. The eldest son's son, Liu Guiqiang, did not pass the entrance exam and was arranged by Liu Chongjing to join the military, where he is doing well and is preparing for a promotion. Currently in the military, besides Liu Chongzeng and his 2 sons, there are also Liu Fengqin and Liu Guiqiang. Liu Fengqin has been in the military for many years and now holds the rank of captain. She works in the logistics department of a confidential unit, is married to a colleague, and has a daughter. The 3 of them live in a province in the northwest. Fu Manhua has also retired and come here to reunite with Su Tingda, bringing Su Yichen's 2 children to study here. After all, Guizhou province as a war zone, is not as developed as Guangdong province. So this time, everyone gathered quite well, with representatives from almost every family filling 2 large tables. Lulu is a legendary figure among the younger generation, highly respected, and everyone from their generation looks up to them, asking many questions. Once everyone dispersed, Su and Mo finally had the chance to carefully observe the 2 children. They looked darker and thinner, with scars on their faces and bodies that hadn't fully healed. They appeared more composed but also stronger, like a sword ready to be drawn. The couple asked about their training situation, and not wanting to worry their parents too much, the siblings shared only the less dangerous details. In reality, they had faced life and death situations multiple times there. Fortunately, they went together as siblings, having each other's backs. Otherwise, they might not have graduated safely. They initially thought they had an advantage as they were considered special abilities users, but the world is vast, and there are many talented individuals. Those who passed the tests were already among the best. In their cohort, there was someone who seemed to understand some kind of sorcery, and several people fell victim to him. The siblings almost fell for his tricks as well. Reunion days always pass quickly. In just 3 days, the siblings had to leave home again to fulfill their missions. Lu Heian went to the training base to train the selected military talents. Lu Yanhe, along with a group of entrusted seniors, led a team to intensively develop their early warning aircraft. The National Research Team also took a 2-pronged approach, working on independent development while trying to buy some alternatives to assemble for use, preparing for new electronic warfare. The following year, our country modified a Tu-154M for electronic intelligence collection, equipping it with a synthetic aperture radar system under the belly, significantly enhancing the combat efficiency of our Air Force. However, the Tu-154M is just a passenger aircraft model with significant drawbacks. At that time, facing the technological blockade from major powers, we couldn't buy better models and had to make do. While our country was focused on developing these technologies, Country M occasionally provoked us. Since the Gulf War, Country M established its military dominance and began to act provocatively, often targeting us. In the past, if they dared to provoke us like this, we would have fought back immediately. But now, there is a gap in strength between the 2 sides, and a reckless counterattack would only drag the country into the whirlpool of war. After a period of turmoil, our economy was already lagging, and we needed a stable environment to develop. Therefore, as long as the other side did not truly infringe on our sovereignty, we could only endure minor provocations or retaliate secretly in ways that couldn't be openly discussed. In this back and forth, our country faced several setbacks. Everyone gritted their teeth, remembering these humiliations, and worked hard, waiting for the day to reclaim their honor. In 1994, Country M's aircraft carrier illegally patrolled our coastal borders, simulating attacks and tracking our nuclear submarines. Such provocative actions could not be tolerated, and the command center immediately ordered fighter jets to escort. However, before our aircraft could take off, the radar screen showed over 200 enemy aircraft flying towards our coastal cities. The commander was startled, thinking a war was about to break out, and quickly ordered all Air Force units to take off and prepare for battle. In the end, after circling in the sky, nothing happened. It was only then that everyone realized they had fallen victim to the enemy's electronic warfare. The higher-ups were furious, feeling deeply humiliated, as a single electronic reconnaissance aircraft had successfully exposed all our coastal Air Force deployments without any loss. But with inferior technology, we had no choice but to accept our defeat. In 1996, during a maritime crisis, we were again severely beaten in electronic warfare and information warfare. At a critical moment, Country M turned off GPS, leaving our ships lost at sea, and even missiles could not be guided, resulting in a hasty conclusion. These 2 humiliations prompted the higher-ups to issue a stern order to mobilize the entire nation and use all means, regardless of cost, to develop these technologies and ensure we would no longer be toyed with. Those years were the most frustrating for the military. Encouraged by certain individuals, The weak reputation of the panda spread far and wide, leading to a group of so-called prophets who gained fame by insulting the panda. Of course, the panda has vast land and a large population, with its share of bad people, but there are even more heroes. Many patriotic entrepreneurs and overseas Chinese, aware of the country's needs, quietly contributed to the nation in their own ways. In such circumstances, Liu Yanhe emerged from the national research team to take over the Su family's technology industry, supporting the country in another way. Many heroes sacrificed their lives for the nation's strength without the public knowing. The words 81192 received, "I cannot return, you continue forward," brought tears to many soldiers. When he said this, he had already made the decision to die. The hero used his life to win a chance for the country. However, the environment at that time did not allow for much discussion. Those unaware of the details only saw the panda lose a fighter jet and a pilot, while country compensated a mere $30,000 in return for the crew and the EP-3 electronic reconnaissance aircraft. Once the news broke, the international community mocked the panda, and its reputation as weak grew even worse, with many eager to take advantage. The critics were pleased, unaware that this was merely a strategic move on our part, allowing country to suffer a significant loss. That EP-3 electronic reconnaissance aircraft was the most advanced in the world at the time, with only 12 in existence, all held by country and its allies, making it impossible for us to access. Now, due to this incident, the aircraft had to make an emergency landing in our country, providing our researchers with a golden opportunity. When country learned the plane was landing here, they were shocked, as it contained the latest technology. If the panda learned from it, the loss would be immense. They immediately sent representatives to negotiate, demanding we release the crew and not touch or inspect the plane, claiming it was their territory and touching it would be an invasion. Indeed, international law states that a plane is considered territory. Our negotiators naturally ignored this. If your territory has landed on mine, it's no longer your decision. At that time, Liu Changzheng, the second-in-command of the Yangcheng military district, handled the matter and directly proposed conditions. We could release the crew and return the plane, but they had to apologize and pay compensation. Country agreed to apologize but refused to pay. After all, compensation between countries only occurs between victors and the defeated. As the world's top power, how could they compensate a weak country? If this got out, it would damage their image as a big brother. After several days of back-and-forth negotiations, they finally agreed to apologize and pay $30,000 for meal expenses. To save face, the agreement clearly stated that the $30,000 was only for the crew's meals and did not include any other costs, and country would not pay any additional fees. After signing the agreement, we honored our promise and quickly returned the crew. Of course, before their return, we had each of them write a letter of remorse and recorded videos of them reading it, which aired repeatedly on the news. After the crew was sent back, country waited 2 days, but when they saw we hadn't returned the plane, they hurriedly inquired. We shrugged and said we were in the process of dismantling the aircraft and would send it soon. Country was furious, questioning why we were dismantling their plane. We stood firm, presenting the signed agreement and pointing to the memo, stating they had only compensated $30,000, which was clearly just for meals, and would not pay any other costs. Therefore, the shipping costs for the plane were our responsibility, and since we were paying, we decided how to ship it. Dismantling it was cheaper than shipping the whole aircraft. Country was infuriated, not expecting the weak panda to stand so firm. But the contract was signed, and the plane was already dismantled. The situation was set. They had to either go to war or endure. Currently, country was too afraid to go to war. The EP-3 reconnaissance aircraft contained enemy identification systems and 250,000 GPS units, none of which had been modified. They certainly couldn't engage in battle now. Just modifying those parameters would take 5 months. Even if they wanted to fight, they would have to wait 5 months. Country was filled with hatred, planning to teach the panda a lesson once the modifications were complete. However, before that could happen, they were distracted by other issues. At this point, country had no choice but to negotiate again, insisting that before we shipped the parts, they would send someone to inspect them to ensure nothing was missing. We generously agreed, but insisted that our personnel must be present during their inspection to prevent any intentional damage to the parts, which they found reasonable and accepted. In fact, during the negotiations, our researchers had already dismantled the electronic reconnaissance aircraft for study. However, after studying it, they couldn't reassemble it due to the significant technological gap between the two sides. This led to the decision to ship the dismantled parts. When country's experts arrived at the now unrecognizable EP-3, they were nearly in tears and had to dismantle it again to check if all the parts were intact, then reassemble it to see if anything was missing. As they were inspecting, they noticed a crowd gathering, not just outside but also on the roof, with people using binoculars. Country was furious, but had no choice but to endure at this point. After the plane was shipped back, country assessed the leak level of this incident as catastrophic. After the collision incident, our country's research team gained a deeper understanding of electronic warfare technology through in-depth discussions and studies of the EP-3, making significant progress in domestic technology. In 2003, our independently developed early warning aircraft, the KJ-2000, successfully completed its test flight. The rapid progress was largely due to the hard work of our research team over the previous years. Whether it was electronic reconnaissance aircraft or early warning aircraft, the core technology lies in the collection and transmission of signals, specifically in the transmission and reception modules. As early as 1993, our research team advocated for significant efforts to study the reception and transmission modules. Active phased array radar was the most advanced concept at that time, but it was still in the conceptual stage. The world's first early warning aircraft equipped with active phased array radar was the Falcon from Israel, which, although still immature, could only scan a 260-degree range, leaving significant blind spots. Our research team had a technical solution to address this issue. After negotiations with Israel, they sent a technical team to Beijing to discuss with us. During the talks, Professor Wang from our research team proposed our technical solution, using the IL-76 as the platform and employing the world's largest mounted antenna. By elevating the radar antenna, we could reduce the aircraft's tail's obstruction of the beam and achieve 360-degree coverage. This proposal shocked the Israeli technical team, who believed we were qualified to collaborate with them on developing a third version of the Falcon early warning aircraft. However, the Israeli authorities were not straightforward. They wanted to profit from us while also taking our technical solutions for free. As a result, negotiations dragged on for 2 years, and it wasn't until 1996 that the cooperation agreement was finalized. At that time, the contract stipulated that the Falcon early warning aircraft would be jointly developed, with funding from us and core transmission and reception components produced by our side. After the contract was signed, many people were confused as to why we were doing the work for them despite paying for it. In reality, the more work we did, the greater our advantage. If we learned to produce all the core components, we could still manufacture our own early warning aircraft, even if unexpected issues arose later. The entire research team understood this, so everyone worked exceptionally hard and eagerly took on tasks. During the collaboration, the Israeli research team was very satisfied with our work and frequently visited us. In addition to the research team, other sectors of the country were also making efforts, with many patriotic companies getting involved in economic cooperation. The Su family also managed to secure a contract to help Israel process antenna covers and transmission component housings, which was a huge investment with minimal returns and a guaranteed loss. However, for the strength of our nation, everything was worth it. With the combined efforts of various groups, we were involved in nearly the entire production process. This was merely a backup plan to prevent unexpected situations. Fortunately, we were prepared. In April and May of 2000, just as the aircraft was about to be completed, Israel secretly sold the Falcon early warning aircraft, developed in cooperation with us, to India for $1.38 billion. They then proposed to terminate the contract, and no matter how we negotiated, it was useless. They only compensated us with less than $400 million. Thankfully, we had our backup plan. We had learned the technology for the core components and their production, so we were not afraid of their shameless contract breach. At most, it would take us some time to develop a new aircraft ourselves. Thus, in December of the same year, the KJ-2000 project was officially initiated. Later, we learned new things from the EP-3, and after more than 2 years of effort, the KJ-2000 finally succeeded in its test flight in 2003. Seeing that we had developed our own early warning aircraft, the small chair began to engage in underhanded tactics, hiring online influencers to whitewash their actions. They claimed that our ability to produce our own early warning aircraft was due to them giving us the technology for free, and that their breach of contract was merely a result of pressure from the US. At that time, the internet was in a chaotic state, and with the guidance of those with ulterior motives, the general public had a great deal of goodwill towards the small chair, almost feeling grateful. It was truly disgusting to act like a sold girl while putting up a facade. However, our research team ignored this. After the successful test flight of the KJ-2000, they continued to work on the next steps. The KJ-2000 was based on the Russian Il-76, of which our country only had 4. Given our vast territory, for early warning aircraft were definitely insufficient, especially since the US had over 50 similar aircraft. We had to find a way to produce more. Thus, the research team turned their attention to the domestically produced Y-8 transport aircraft. Although the Y-8 was not as capable as the Il-76, it was produced in our country, allowing for full domestic production in case of war, which would mitigate the risks of a protracted conflict. However, the Il-76 has a maximum takeoff weight of 190 tons and an effective payload of 50 tons, while the Y-8 has a maximum takeoff weight of 60 tons and an effective payload of only 20 tons. It was nearly impossible to transfer the active phased array radar from the KJ-2000 to the Y-8 platform without starting from scratch, leading to the development of the KJ-200. Despite these challenging circumstances, our research team managed to implement a balancing strategy in just a few years. In October 2005, the KJ-200 successfully completed its test flight and was delivered for military use in January 2006. However, due to the balancing strategy employed in this aircraft, it had significant radar blind spots and could not perform all-around searches. Additionally, limited space meant that it could not accommodate many control terminals, resulting in the KJ-200's command capabilities being far weaker than those of the KJ-2000. Our dedicated research team was always eager to resolve these issues quickly, ensuring that our military would not lag behind others in weaponry. Tragically, a shocking disaster struck the nation. In June 2006, the frontline research team for our early warning aircraft, aiming to upgrade the KJ-200, had a group of experts simultaneously test fly a KJ-200. Unfortunately, the aircraft crashed, resulting in the loss of all aboard. This was the greatest loss for our aerospace industry, leading to a near-complete gap in our electronic warfare personnel, which took years to recover from. In this situation, Liu Yanhe, a former Corps member, was rehired by the government to reorganize the research and development team. The new team took a few years to adjust, and starting in 2010, our military's electronic warfare equipment began to be rapidly deployed, with new and more advanced equipment appearing roughly every couple of years. At first, the military was uncertain and kept everything under wraps, acting with their usual restraint and low profile. However, after a series of events, the military realized that our technology had indeed improved. After being suppressed for over 20 years, their confidence returned, and they gradually began to show a more assertive stance. The weapons were no longer hidden. Aside from the latest models, they showcased and disclosed what was necessary. It was like a fight. Initially, both sides would push and shove to test each other's strength. Once they realized the opponent was weak, they would go all out. In these years, our country seemed peaceful without war, but in reality, there had been many battles over the past 20 years. They were fought in electronic warfare rather than hot conflict, unnoticed by the public. With modern technology, the nature of war has changed. Electronic warfare has become the norm compared to traditional warfare. However, aside from a few notable incidents reported by the media, most electronic battles, regardless of the outcome, remained unspoken. In 20x6, a certain country built a radar observation station on an island just over 100 kilometers away and boasted about it. On the same day, our military responded calmly. When ordinary citizens heard about it, they wondered why we didn't retaliate, feeling frustrated and angry. While the public was dissatisfied, the authorities of that country were on high alert. In recent years, the panda had been quiet, taking advantage without a word, but if they suffered any loss, they would make sure the world knew. Now, with such calmness and official statements, it was clear they were preparing to act, possibly plotting something behind the scenes. That country remained vigilant for over half a year, waiting for any movement from the panda. In September, their radar observation station was completed, the equipment was tested, and the relevant troops were deployed. One morning, the radar at the observation station detected 6 Panda aircraft approaching rapidly. From the radar, it appeared to be 6K bombers that had crossed over the island. That country had been waiting, and upon seeing this, they thought the time had come. Believing the opponent had no air superiority, they dispatched 2 F-15s to intercept. The pilots of that country were confident. They thought they could easily send the 6K bombers back where they came from. However, when the 2 F-15s arrived, they were shocked to see not 6, but a formation of 42 fighter jets, including over 30 J-16s and several bombers, along with 2 KJ-500 early warning aircraft in the distance. The 2 F-15 pilots exchanged glances and quickly decided to retreat. How could they intercept 42 aircraft? Just getting back alive would be a miracle, let alone who would intercept whom. They turned to flee, but didn't get far before the radar signal disappeared, leaving only static. The pilots were alarmed. Without navigation, they couldn't fly recklessly. If they went the wrong way, it could be disastrous. So, they had no choice but to circle in place. Our 42 aircraft successfully crossed the strait, completed their training, and returned home confidently. By the time we arrived home, the 2 F-15s were still circling. As their fuel ran low, the electronic systems finally returned to normal, allowing them to escape and make a successful emergency landing. This was a definite slap in the face. You wanted to build a radar station? Well, let's see how useful it is. In 20x7, that radar station detected over 30 Panda warplanes approaching. This time, having learned from the previous experience, they accurately identified 1Y, 8 early warning aircraft, 1Y, 9 intelligence collection aircraft, 6H, 6 bombers, and over 20 J-16s. Thus, the self-defense forces of that country scrambled all available F-15s, but when they reached their designated position, the sky was empty. Since then, our military has enjoyed the thrill of evading detection, becoming somewhat addicted to it. According to statistics from that country, in just 1 year, they urgently scrambled 1,168 aircraft to respond to the Panda's air operations, nearly exhausting the lifespan of their F-15s. That radar station turned out to be more of a liability than an asset. This situation was not unique to that country. The Kimchi country faced similar issues. Ever since a certain leader emerged, their air force had been restless, truly asking for trouble. In confrontations with smaller nations, we gained the upper hand, and in direct confrontations, we began to achieve parity, even gradually gaining the advantage. We had corresponding self-developed weapons to counter theirs, some even more advanced. Whether it was reconnaissance aircraft, fighter jets, missiles, aircraft carriers, or warships, we had the necessary configurations. Even the C-4ISR system, which the M country prided itself on, had our own equivalent, the thousand-handed Guanyin system. With no advantage in electronic warfare, the M country shifted the battlefield to other areas, using economic restrictions, trade sanctions, and more. However, at that time, the leadership of the M country misjudged the strength of the panda. Some policies that worked well against capitalist countries lost their effectiveness against the panda, backfiring and earning the panda a nickname from netizens. The other battlefields were not closely related to Lu and Yanhe. One sibling made outstanding contributions in aviation, while the other accumulated military achievements in the Navy, becoming the first female commander, both holding high positions at that time. Modern warfare is all-encompassing. Other aspects have colleagues responsible for them. They only needed to focus on their work, providing enough confidence to their colleagues in other areas. At least in terms of military power, we no longer needed to be afraid. After a long time of trying to shake the panda, the M country quickly withdrew its troops, launching a so-called Return to Asia-Pacific plan, establishing the so-called First and Second Island chains, attempting to blockade the panda from the sea. However, the panda had learned from its past experiences of lacking maritime power. Since the 1980s, it had been vigorously developing its navy, and decades of progress had transformed its capabilities. In response to the M country's so-called blockade, the panda did not hold back. As soon as the destroyer Nan Nan was launched, it took its fleet out to disrupt the M country's so-called First Island chain. The M country was furious and urgently dispatched 5 aircraft carriers, planning to teach the panda a lesson during its sporting events, demonstrating to the world the consequences of disrespecting the leader. The world was ready with popcorn, expecting to see the panda get beaten. However, events took an unexpected turn. The M country failed to strike the panda and instead found itself on the receiving end of a significant blow. After the M country arrived, their nuclear submarine collided and was damaged, sonar buoys went missing, and aircraft fell into the water. During the panda's sporting events, not only did they fail to punish the panda, but their personnel were also seen in diving suits retrieving aircraft from the seabed, providing a comical spectacle for the watching nations. The logic behind these events may be lost on the average citizen, but countries around the world understood clearly.